Welcome to Novel Love Hearing. We bring you hundreds of novel audiobooks covering every genre and every kind of story you can imagine. Action? We've got it. Adventure? Absolutely. Horror? Of course. Whether it's the legendary Uchiha massacre or outrageous tales like stealing Naruto's and Sasuke's women, you'll find it here. From epic series like One Piece, Bleach, Fairy Tail, and Hunter x Hunter, to countless other adventures, our library has it all. Love novels but don't have time to read? No worries, just plug in your earbuds, sit back, and let the story take over. Good listening, and happy hearing. His understanding of ninjutsu also deepened. With his grasp of the release principles, reverse engineering and advanced application of Chidori wasn't too difficult. It wouldn't be long before he mastered his first high-power offensive S-rank ninjutsu. During breaks in his research, he'd wander the battlefield, taking down enemies to earn more points. Life couldn't have been more satisfying. 2 months passed in the blink of an eye. Move aside, make way. Izuna shouted, frantically clearing a path. Behind him, carried on a stretcher, was the bloodied and unconscious clan leader, Tajima. Not long ago, the Senju launched an unprecedented large-scale assault. This war had dragged on for too long. Both the Senju and Uchiha clans were eager to end it. Sensing the fatigue among his clansmen, Senju Batsuma decided to make a bold gamble. He mobilized all available forces for a decisive, all-out confrontation with the Uchiha. If they won, the Land of Fire would be entirely under Senju control. If they lost, they would retreat and focus on recovery for a few years before making another attempt. Reluctantly, Tajima Uchiha rallied his forces to resist the relentless waves of enemy attacks. Half a day ago, Batsuma personally led a charge and came face to face with his longtime rival, Tajima. The two clan leaders engaged in a deadly duel, with neither willing to back down. The result? Both men were gravely injured and had to be carried back to their respective camps for treatment. Though the clan leaders were down, the battle raged on. Seizing the opportunity, Kyosuke doubled down on harvesting points, carefully avoiding Hashirama's repeated challenges. Meanwhile, Madara relentlessly pursued Hashirama, refusing to give him any respite. Izuna also clashed fiercely with Tobirama, their rivalry growing more intense with each encounter. On the battlefield, Kyosuke laughed uproariously when he heard the news, nearly tempted to celebrate with a few fire-style, great fireball. If only both of them would just drop dead already. He muttered, a hint of regret in his voice. Sir, enemy forces spotted ahead. One of his subordinates reported, snapping him back to reality. Kyosuke nodded to Maya and stepped forward, taking the lead, positioning himself at the forefront of the group. During this period, the Legion's fighting style changed slightly. Previously, the strategy was simple. Activate Chidori and charge recklessly, leaving survival up to individual skill and luck. But considering the escalating intensity of the battlefield and the high casualty rates, Kyosuke decided to implement a new approach. He would handle the main assault while the others stayed behind, offering support from a safe distance. Ninja art, summoning jutsu. A cloud of white smoke enveloped the battlefield, causing chaos among the enemy ranks. Boom. By the time the Senju noticed, a colossal snake, over 30 meters long, was already tearing through their formation, crushing trees in its path. Kiti, aim for the enemies and use your venom. Kyosuke commanded. Yes, Lord Kyosuke. The snake replied. Kiti, a venomous serpent from the depths of Rishi Cave, wasn't the largest or most fearsome of the snakes, but its venom was unparalleled in potency. In an era where medical ninjutsu was still rudimentary, its venom was a terrifying weapon. With Hiti at his side, Kyosuke had the confidence to lead the charge on his own. The serpent moved with incredible speed, far too quick for group jutsu to target effectively. Before the Senju could react, a spray of purple venom engulfed several of their comrades, killing them instantly. Only after the destruction did a few stray jutsu harmlessly streak through the air. Knowing better than to linger, Hiti slithered out of the enemy's range, ignoring the futile provocations. Just as the snake retreated, the thunderous sound of lightning erupted. Kyosuke's Chidori strike team descended upon the battlefield, turning it into a blood-soaked slaughterhouse. Senju camp, frontline, damn it, it's that wretched kid again. Senju Nobunaga slammed his hand on the table, his chakra surging so violently that the entire camp seemed to tremble. Oddly enough, the table itself remained perfectly still, a testament to his exceptional chakra control. Senju Nobunaga, Batsuma's trusted younger brother, had naturally assumed command in the clan leader's absence. Moments ago, a scout reported that yet another joint squad had fallen to Kyosuke's forces. As expected, they had been utterly annihilated, with only 3 survivors managing to escape. The colossal venomous snake had become the bane of countless low-ranking ninjas, a nightmare they couldn't escape. We need to find a way to stop him. Nobunaga muttered. He understood the devastating impact this serpent had on their morale. Senju ninjas could accept dying in battle, but the thought of being devoured by a giant snake was another matter entirely. Unfortunately, Kyosuke was too cunning, avoiding large-scale confrontations and fleeing at the first sign of trouble. Several attempts to trap him had ended in failure. And that damn flying thunder god jutsu. What kind of twisted genius comes up with something like that? Nobuna cursed, his frustration boiling over. Nearby, Tobirama frowned but remained silent. While he didn't share his uncle's disdain, he couldn't deny Kyosuke's brilliance. Both the Shadow Clone and Flying Thunder God Jutsu were remarkable techniques, earning his grudging admiration. Still, admiration wouldn't stop him from eliminating Kyosuke given the chance. As Nobunaga said, the boy was far more dangerous than Madara, whose straightforward nature made him predictable. The key to defeating Kyosuke lay in neutralizing the Flying Thunder God Jutsu. While the group deliberated strategies, an unexpected guest arrived with an intriguing proposal. "I have a plan to take down Kyosuke once and for all," the visitor declared. "You?" Nobunaga exclaimed, clearly surprised by the person's identity. Given their shared enmity with Kyosuke, it wasn't entirely unexpected that this individual would appear. "We'll leave it to you, Lord Ashina." "Not at all. I must thank Lord Butsuma for his trust." The visitor, Uzumaki Ashina, leader of the Uzumaki clan and a master of sealing techniques, had came to personally offer his assistance in eliminating Kyosuke. Chapter 79, Mito appears, the approaching killing trap looking up at the sky, the moon is smiling looking down at the ground, the giant snake is jumping. With the summoning beast, Kiti, life for Kyosuke has been incredibly comfortable. At first he was standing at the snake head and giving orders, but later he found it too tiring to even stand, so he got a small mat and lay down on it. His leisurely posture made his subordinates, who had to walk on foot, quite envious. "My lord, I've heard that Hiti comes from a legendary mysterious sage region?" one subordinate began to subtly ask. "Yes." Kyosuke lazily sighed while lying on the broad snake's head. Orochimaru once mentioned that the white snake sage had a strange and difficult personality, hard to communicate with. But Kyosuke didn't feel that way at all. Knowing Kyosuke liked lounging on Hiti's back, the white snake sage adjusted the contract, using her own sage chakra to greatly extend the summoning beast's duration. Otherwise, Kyosuke wouldn't be able to enjoy it as much. Glancing at his smiling subordinates, Kyosuke spat out some grape skin, stretched lazily, and slowly asked, "Do you want to sign a summoning contract with the Rishi Cave?" Yes. Signing a contract with one of the 3 great summoning locations is a difficult task, way beyond the usual level. However, since the white snake sage seemed easier to talk to, maybe with some negotiation, it could be arranged. Rumors really do ruin everything. She looks so kind and gentle, but Orochimaru says she's hard to get along with. I think sometimes Orochimaru is unreliable too. Promising to consider the request, Kyosuke waved his hand, dismissing the subordinate. After a good meal and some rest, Kyosuke decided to go out and find some enemies to practice against. However, instead of finding any enemies, he suddenly noticed a flying thunder god coordinate wandering around the battlefield. At first, Kyosuke thought someone had picked up one of his kunai, but after focusing, his expression changed. Why is this girl on the battlefield? He gave a simple command and used the flying thunder god to teleport near the coordinate. Pushing aside the leaves in front of him, he found that the person hiding under the tree was none other than Mito Uzumaki, the bean sprout. "Hey, what are you doing here?" "Ah." The sudden voice scared Mito so much that she nearly jumped out of her skin. Shaking the 2 talismans dangling from her hair bun, the little girl turned around angrily, looking like she wanted to pounce on him and take a bite. "You're scaring me." She rolled her eyes in dissatisfaction. After a brief silence, Mito sighed and said, "I came with my father. He's already developed a method to deal with you." "Really? What kind of method? Please don't tell me he's going to try scaring me with a ridiculously high dowry. Can you be serious for once?" To his surprise, Mito wasn't embarrassed but instead explained with a worried expression. "Remember? You left behind a lot of kunai with flying thunder god marking in the land of whirlpools. Yeah, did your father enshrine them or something?" Ignoring his sarcastic remark, the bun-haired princess continued. "After careful research, my father has successfully developed a sealing technique to block space-time ninjutsu." Hearing this, Kyosuke finally grew serious. At the same time, he understood why Mito had snuck onto the battlefield like a thief. She probably didn't want him to get into trouble, so she came to warn him. This girl. Jumping down from the treetop, Kyosuke reached out and gently rubbed Mito's red hair, smiling as he asked, "So, what does your father plan to do?" "I don't know either." Mito shook her head and roughly explained the principle of the time-space sealing technique, It's probably a variation of the contract seal. It must be engraved on your body to isolate the space-time coordinates. Contract sealing? Kyosuke recalled the battle between Masked Dobi and Minato. The fourth Hokage, as a son-in-law of the Uzumaki family, used the contract sealing technique to sever the control of the Nightingales. Uzumaki Ashina really lived up to the title of sealing technique master, quickly developing a method to block the Flying Thunder God coordinates. Unfortunately, the conditions for using the sealing jutsu were too harsh. The person performing the sealing had to be almost as fast as him. Such a ninja might not be impossible to find, but certainly not in the land of whirlpools. Your father really is a fool. One day, he'll realize that the Senju are not reliable. Seeing him indifferent, Mito puffed up her cheeks and anxiously grabbed his arm. Don't be so careless. It's not just my father, Senju Nobunaga will also be involved in this assassination. If they team up, you won't stand a chance. Relax. Kyosuke waved his hand dismissively. They won't have the chance to seal me. But Mito's expression turned serious, clearly worried for his safety. It's not just my father who can use the time-space sealing technique. Who else? Don't tell me that old bastard Senju Batsuma can learn it too. If he could, even a dog could use sealing jutsu. Of course, it's... She suddenly grinned mischievously. It's me. Sealing technique, time-space seal. The black sealing formation spread rapidly and immediately severed Kyosuke's connection with the coordinates in an instant. Even though Kyosuke kicked Mito away, the sealing technique didn't fade. Looking at the girl getting up from the ground, Kyosuke's eyes clearly showed disappointment. But he said nothing. The deed was done, and there was no need for further conversation. The princess of the Uzumaki clan had made the choice she thought was right, and that was it. Drawing his sword, Kyosuke surveyed the surroundings and coldly shouted. Come out, no need to hide. Clap, clap, clap. With a light applause, Senju Nobunaga appeared like the final boss. You little brat, you'll soon learn what happens when you talk big. It was clear that he was very sensitive to the term old bastard. Possibly due to his somewhat greenish hair color. Soon, Uzumaki Ashina appeared from the other side, and numerous afterimages began to enter the arena. To ensure the trap was set, the Senju clan sent many of their elite members. After all, aside from his space-time abilities, Kyosuke's explosive teleportation jutsu was also quite formidable. If there were fewer people, there might be a chance for Kyosuke to escape. With a swing of his sword, Kyosuke sneered and taunted. Two old dogs leading a pack of pups, thinking they can take down the mighty lion? Oh, go ahead and talk. Senju Nobunaga replied with smug satisfaction. You won't live much longer anyway, so just say as much as you can. Oh, by the way, if you beg me, maybe I'll pass your last words to the Uchiha. Bang. A smoke bomb suddenly exploded. Using it as cover, Kyosuke sent out 12 shadow clones, each rushing in different directions. Chapter 80, S-Rank Ultimate Technique, Wrathful Thunder Beast roars across the world a killing field. Facing two clan leader-level experts and a group of formidable Senju ninjas, even if it were Tajima himself, there was a high chance he would fall in battle. Direct confrontation was out of the question, which is why Kyosuke resorted to using a smoke bomb to execute the shadow clone jutsu. Hiding his real body amidst the smoke, he waited for the right moment to break through. Fire style, Great Fireball. The clones frequently unleashed fire-style ninjutsu, attempting to carve a path through the encirclement. Seeing this, Senju Nobunaga directly positioned himself in front of the shadow clones, blade in hand, ready to block their way alone. Stop struggling. There's only one outcome for you today. Death. After finishing his words, he blew on the kunai in his hand. The potent wind nature chakra infused into it turned the weapon into an unstoppable wind blade. In the Warring States period, 9 out of 10 clan leaders excelled at taijutsu, and Senju Nobunaga was no exception. Wind style, vacuum blade. With overwhelming power, he shattered the combined attack of 3 shadow clones head-on. Boom. With the ground caving in, Senju Nobunaga charged toward the remaining clones, showing no intention of giving his opponent any room to breathe. You have no chance of escape. Surrender. He said while pressing forward, piling psychological pressure on Kyosuke. God, you're annoying. Growled a clone of Kyosuke. Drawing his blade, he slashed angrily, extending the Chidori sharp spear from his left hand and instantly becoming a two-sword fighter. Uchiha style, Astonishing Nightingale. A pure swordsmanship clash. The result, Senju Nobuna's left arm was cut, while Kyosuke's clone was pierced through the chest by the wind blade. Meanwhile, Uzumaki Ashina began his move. Rather than attacking directly, he rapidly weaved signs with his hands, creating a crimson sealing barrier. Sealing jutsu, Crimson Flaming Seal. Unless you can fly away, you'll have to defeat me to break this barrier. The ruthless Uzumaki clan leader demonstrated his resolve to kill Kyosuke. Before Kyosuke could react, Ashina changed his hand seals. 7 or 8 glowing chains shot out, instantly destroying the 2 nearest shadow clones. Your existence is too dangerous, Kyosuke Uchiha. Uzumaki Ashina said, staring at him with a determined look. He knew that this action might make his daughter hate him for life, but as the mysterious man had warned, if Kyosuke wasn't eliminated, the land of whirlpools would never know peace. With the flying thunder god jutsu's terrifying potential, once this boy fully matured, who in the ninja world could stop him? If they didn't strike early, not only the Uzumaki clan but the entire land of whirlpools would have no future. I hope your plan is thorough enough. Uzumaki Ashina thought as he glanced inadvertently in the direction his daughter had disappeared. Adamantine chains raged across the battlefield. Clang! The crimson barrier walls repelled the kunai Kyosuke had thrown. Not only physical attacks but even airflow can't get through. Kyosuke's eyes flickered, he seemed to have thought of a way to break the stalemate. System notification, successfully exchanged for Chakra recovery potion, costing 10,000 points. These system points sure have a way of disappearing at the worst times. Kyosuke muttered. Before drinking it, he split off 3 more shadow clones to guard him. Gulping down the potion, he felt his chakra surge and immediately began casting fire-style ninjutsu. Fire-style, dragon flame song technique. Fire-style, dragon flame song technique. Fire-style, dragon flame song technique. For a moment, the barrier was filled with blazing fire dragons swirling through the air. Has he lost his mind? Uzumaki Ashina frowned slightly. Something about Kyosuke's actions felt calculated. Unfortunately, Kyosuke's teleportation jutsu was too fast. Even with the adamantine chain's overwhelming power, they couldn't defeat him in a short time. Senju Nobunaga, that fool, was still wildly slashing at the shadow clones. System notification, defeated a Senju clan Chunin, earned 360 points. System notification, defeated a Senju clan Chunin, earned 480 points. System notification, defeated an Uzumaki clan Chunin, earned 400 points. At least this makes up for some of my losses. Kyosuke thought. The fiery dragons weren't effective against clan leaders but were deadly to ordinary ninjas. Beyond recouping points, the increasing heat inside the barrier was also part of his strategy. Wiping sweat from his brow, Kyosuke felt like he was in a steam bath, his skin reddening from the heat. Kid, is this the grave you've chosen for yourself? Senju Nobunaga sneered, finally locking onto Kyosuke's real body. His wind blade slashed horizontally, clashing head-on with Kyosuke's Kusanagi sword. The collision sent Kyosuke flying, his chest feeling like it had been struck by a heavy hammer. This won't work. I'll have to redeem more. Kyosuke thought grimly, exchanging another chakra recovery potion. System notification, successfully exchanged for chakra recovery potion, costing 10,000 points. Using the teleportation jutsu to distance himself from his enemies, Kyosuke gulped down the potion, his chakra once again returning to full strength. Damn it, these old fogies cost main 20000 points. I swear, one day, I'll make the Senju clan pay tenfold. Kyosuke leapt up, electric light surging in his hand. Above, dark clouds gathered, lightning flashing ominously. A storm loomed. Using his Sharingan to read the path of the lightning, Kyosuke directed a beam of energy into the clouds, ignoring the enemy closing in on him. Bang! He took a heavy kick to the chest, his shadow clones sacrificing themselves to block the worst of it. This brat! Senju Nobunaga sensed something was off. The lightning in the sky was unnatural, far too concentrated. But it was too late. Sizzle! Thunder and lightning crazily gathered in his palms, blood dripping from his mouth. Kyosuke stared coldly at his enemies below. A monstrous thunder beast emerged from the clouds. What is that? Uzumaki Ashina shouted, immediately casting a defensive barrier. Senju Nobunaga, lacking strong defensive techniques, could only use Earth Wall, but it was insufficient to block an overhead attack. Just try and survive this. A sudden gust of wind swept his hair as Nobunaga looked up. The thunder beast was already attacking. In the blink of an eye, the beast's jaws engulfed him, its attack faster than the speed of sound, leaving no room for hesitation. Perish with the thunder's roar. Lightning style, Kirin. Boom. The devastating lightning obliterated Uzumaki Ashina's barrier. Aside from the swift-reacting Uzumaki leader, everyone else was annihilated by the Kirin's onslaught. In the distance, a scorched corpse stirred slightly. Taking advantage of the lingering smoke, it slipped into the grass and quickly vanished. Chapter 81, Kyosuke's death? That charred body was naturally Kyosuke's, who had been affected by the Kirin technique. This lightning-style jutsu has a terrifying destructive power, but unfortunately, the conditions for its use are too strict, so it cannot be used as a conventional means of confrontation. Without the help of the barrier to funnel the thermal air to the clouds above, Kyosuke might not have been able to use it in the battle. For the past 2 months, he had been focusing on studying Kirin. Unexpectedly, the first time he used it, it saved his life and also completed the eradication of a powerful enemy. System prompt: killed Senju Nobunaga, gained 16,000 points. This was the first time the system reported a name, indicating that clan leader level figures were indeed special existences. The clan leader level, or Kage level during the village era, gives a minimum of 10,000 points for a successful kill, with a cap of 40,000 points. From this, it is clear that Senju Nobunaga's strength was not all that great. It's not that he is at the bottom of the Kage level, but it's unlikely he was much better. However, a Kage is still a Kage and a crucial strategic resource. The unexpected loss of such a strong figure would undoubtedly be a blow to the Senju clan. What had once seemed like a promising battle might now collapse because of it, especially since they had yet to achieve their original goal. When Kirin struck, Kyosuke used Chidori to counter the lightning. At the time, he was near the barrier and was not directly harmed, so he narrowly escaped disaster. Otherwise, he would have had to spend 20,000 points to buy a recovery potion. Points: 24,742. Kyosuke, whose body was blackened, glanced at his remaining points and sighed. Saving up points is indeed an extremely difficult task. After struggling for a while, once his space-time jutsu failed, he used the last of his strength to summon a summoning beast. Take me back. After speaking, he collapsed to the ground and lost consciousness completely. Kyosuke-sama. The snake was startled, then, after a moment's thought, swallowed Kyosuke into what seemed like an alternate space within its stomach before canceling the summoning. Not specifying where to take him, the summoned beast naturally assumed it was returning to the Richie cave. In a way, this unintentionally helped Kyosuke. When the Legion leader didn't return for a long time, and Hidi suddenly dispelled the summoning, anyone with a brain would know something went wrong. The ambush had caused such a commotion, it was impossible to keep it hidden from either side's forces. Soon, the details of the incident were put on the table. The Senju clan designed an ambush against Kyosuke Uchiha. Senju Nobunaga is dead. Kyosuke Uchiha's whereabouts are unknown, suspected to have used a lightning jutsu to perish together. Staring at the report on the intelligence, Madara Uchiha remained silent, his body radiating a dense killing intent. That feeling made Izuna, who was beside him, nervous. He had never seen his older brother this angry. Of course, Izuna was also furious. Kyosuke was the target he had always wanted to surpass and the only person within the clan whom he considered a true friend. He never expected that his friend would die due to the enemy's plot. If he didn't avenge this, Izuna swore he would never consider himself human. In the midst of his thoughts, Madara Uchiha, sitting in the commander's seat, suddenly stood up without a word and walked outside. Izuna, go to the front line. Brother, what are you going to do? Kill someone? Madara Uchiha's eyes were icy cold, and his entire aura had changed dramatically. It seemed as though something within him was awakening. On the other side, the situation in the Senju clan was similar. How could this be? Obirama's eyes widened in disbelief. This was his uncle, and he couldn't believe that he had died at Kyosuke's hands. No matter how many times he read it, he couldn't believe the report. Damn it! Where's the Uzumaki Ashina? He shouted in rage. The Uzumaki clan leader has already returned, and it is said that he was also seriously injured. Was the response. That bastard still has the nerve to go back and recuperate. A look of hatred flashed across Obirama's eyes. If it weren't for that guy, his uncle wouldn't have died. Now he walks away like nothing happened, without even considering the situation of their clan. The land of the whirlpool. Obirama muttered to himself. This grudge, he had made a note of it. As for Hashirama beside him, his sadness was even more intense than anyone else's. His uncle's death pained him, but Kyosuke's fall dealt an even heavier blow. Had he known earlier, he would have spared no effort to stop it. That's why, when the ambush plan was discussed, everyone had deliberately avoided him. Now, it was too late. His relative was dead, and his like-minded companion had vanished without a trace. These consecutive blows made Hashirama feel completely defeated. Big brother, you need to pull yourself together. Father is unconscious. You must bear the responsibility of leading the war. Obirama continued to try and motivate him. For the first time in his life, Hashirama felt his brother was being overly insistent. In the end, Hashirama still stepped onto the battlefield amidst the angry cries of the clan. War. This meaningless slaughter, when will it end? Is it really as Kyosuke said, that I must possess the power to control everything? Unknowingly, Hashirama's mindset began to shift. As his emotions changed, a strange power began to awaken within him. The strange ceiling Kyosuke, wearing the special edition mummified skin, groggily opened his eyes. Beside him, A beautiful girl with deep blue hair was looking at him with an emotionless gaze. "You're finally awake. You're really bold, kid. How dare you use the Richie Cave as a shelter? If it weren't for the White Snake Sage's orders, you'd have already turned to waste and been expelled from Y body." This cold-voiced girl was none other than one of the 3 high-ranking members of the Richie Cave, the Snake Princess, Akikishimaheim. Kyosuke blinked, silently cursing the unreliable summoning beast python in his heart. It was supposed to bring him back to the camp, but somehow it ended up here at the Richie Cave. Oh, that's right, he didn't give any special instructions before he fell unconscious. So, it wasn't really the beast's fault. Damn it, now he was even more upset. Carefully glancing at the girl, Kyosuke hesitated before speaking. Sorry, I can leave right now." "Leave?" Akikishimaheim coldly laughed and said. "If it weren't for the timely arrival, you'd have been dead by now." "What?" Kyosuke gasped, not expecting that he had been injured so severely. If he had known, he would have just exchanged for a healing medicine. In fact, the healing potions in the system have different levels. For such severe injuries, a recovery potion costing 20,000 points was required to heal him. The problem was, he just couldn't bring himself to spend that much. If he continued like this, it would take a long time to earn enough points for the Mangekyo Sharingan. Thank you, miss, for saving me. I will forever be in your debt." Alright. Akikishimaheim interrupted him, saying something that made Kyosuke's heart jump. "I never said you're safe now. To truly recover, you'll need to visit the Richie Trapped Pond. It contains abundant natural energy that might help restore your injured body. The premise is, of course, that you don't turn into a mindless beast." Chapter 82, Semi-Finished Sage, Kyosuke's Curse Mark Mode. Big sister, is this really okay? Don't pull, I'll do it myself. Big sister, your strength is too much. Outside the Richie's Trapped Pond, Togreheim was giving Kyosuke a full-body oil spa. Togreheim's technique was extremely skilled, but her movements resembled preparing ingredients before a meal. She was applying a lot of pressure, making Kyosuke yelp. "Don't move, unless you want to explode and die," she warned threateningly. Deep in the Richie's cave, there is a pond with extremely magical healing effects. Unfortunately, except for summoning beasts the size of the Great Serpent, other smaller snakes cannot enjoy the healing of the pond's water. This is because the pond contains not dew but a solidified liquid formed from natural energy. Snakes do not have the necessary physical structure to withstand it, and humans, with their relatively fragile bodies, would die the moment they entered. Without breaking through a layer of ointment, Kyosuke would have exploded the moment he entered. This thing is really damn. He wanted to ask if there were any other treatment methods, but before he could finish his question, Togreheim kicked him into the pond. Splashing in the water, he instinctively struggled, but soon realized he wasn't having trouble breathing. "How amazing," he said, lifting his head out of the water and looking at the snake woman on the shore. "This is really effective. Where does it come from?" He. Togreheim smirked, answering cryptically. "Trust me, you won't want to know." Kyosuke grinned, half because of her unspeakable answer and half because his body suddenly started itching. "Is this natural energy? In the atmosphere, there is floating energy that can be absorbed. Since nothing in the world is truly destroyed, this energy will remain forever. This is the source of natural energy. When absorbed into the body, it mixes with ordinary chakra to create a higher quality chakra known as sage chakra. Ordinary chakra is made by mixing physical energy and mental energy. When natural energy is added, the 3 energies form a perfect balance, allowing the user to enter a special state known as Sage Mode. In this mode, every action and jutsu are greatly enhanced because they are infused with high-quality Sage Chakra. To activate Sage Mode, one must first gather Sage Chakra. The method is to force 3 different energies to reach a balance. The closer the balance, the more perfect the Sage Mode. For example, Jiraiya is not particularly skilled in this area and needs the help of 2 toads to succeed. Naruto is perfect in the traditional sense. The process is slow, but the energy balance in his body is better than his master. Hashirama is overbearing. He relies on his high level of sage body to directly absorb natural energy and force conversion. If anyone else tried that, they would have died many times over. But not Hashirama. He absorbs and converts the energy instantly without needing to consider balance. As for Orochimaru, he does it differently. He completely assimilates his body with natural energy, so there is no need for conversion. If you disregard appearances, he is the most perfect user of Sage Jutsu. He has a permanent Sage buff, which is terrifying when you think about it. That's why the Uchiha brothers teamed up to deal with him. Kyosuke's current disadvantage is clear. His 10-year-old body is not strong enough to withstand Sage Chakra. However, he plans to take a different path, following the route created by Orochimaru. He uses the curse mark for storage and transformation, utilizing diluted natural energy to fight. Though the effect is weaker, it is undeniably helpful for him at this stage. With the ability to analyze the caged bird cursed seal, he reverse engineered it and quickly figured out how to use Orochimaru's curse mark. After all, he doesn't need to worry about reincarnation. He only needs the steps of storage, conversion, and release. Touching his neck, Kyosuke gave up on biting himself and directly formed a curse mark symbol on his shoulder. It's done. On the shore, Togreheim frowned, wondering if he had gone mad. Usually, when others enter the Richie pond, they are tortured to the brink of death. But this guy was smiling in the water like a fool. Definitely got water in his brain. As time passed, once he completed the modification of the curse mark, Kyosuke immediately began to attempt to channel the diluted natural energy. Then, Togreheim saw him start twitching uncontrollably. Sigh. With a thought, the pond water seemed to have a life of its own as it spat out Kyosuke. Not wanting to look at his swelling face, Togreheim raised her arm and slapped him across the cheek. The slap instantly drained all the natural energy from Kyosuke's body. For the first time in his life, he felt that being slapped was actually quite pleasant. Looking at the clear Richie's trapped pond and then at the snake woman in front of him, Kyosuke's face turned serious as he pleaded. Please, continue treating me this way. As soon as his words left his mouth, Togreheim's gaze changed instantly. She had thought of humans as annoying, but now she realized that the other party harbored such dark thoughts. This is so exciting. Her face flushed inexplicably as she tried to remain calm and waved her hand, saying, Don't worry, since you're so earnest in asking. Unaware of the change, Kyosuke nodded gratefully and, with a burst of strength, rolled back into the pond. The next period of time passed smoothly under the constant encouragement from the snake women. With her enthusiastic help, Kyosuke successfully completed the experiment and was able to initially control the diluted natural energy. As his body grew, he would naturally be able to transition into Sage mode, opening a path toward the peak of the Kage level. I never noticed before, but you're really a good person. Or, a good snake? Kyosuke sincerely expressed his gratitude. Ahem, it's nothing. Togreheim waved her hand, her gaze towards the human tinged with a hint of reluctance. The two formed a rather subtle bond of friendship. Before he knew it, Kyosuke had spent his 11th birthday in the Richie's cave. During this time, aside from his daily training, Kyosuke began frequently visiting the underground black market exchange. He accumulated points by capturing rogue ninjas, which were needed to exchange for the Mangekyo Sharingan. This method tested one's luck, as the results were entirely up to fate, but Kyosuke didn't mind, finding it rather relaxing. Soon after his birthday, a major event occurred in the Land of Fire. The Senju clan began a large-scale troop withdrawal, ending a long war that had lasted for years. It seemed the Land of Fire was on the brink of peace, but other countries didn't slow down because of it. Some people were even unwilling to see the Uchiha and Senju clans end their war. Beneath the surface, dark currents continued to stir. Chapter 83, Black Zetsu's scheme. On the western border of the Land of Fire, there exists a clan as prominent as the Hyuga, the Fuma clan. Known for their combative nature, the Fuma clan consists of formidable warriors with ambitions of expanding into the Land of Fire's heartland. However, standing in their way is the Uchiha clan, an opponent of overwhelming strength. To guard against the Fuma clan, the Uchiha kept a battalion stationed on the western border, even during their climactic battle against the Senju. The current Fuma leader, Yukeshi Fuma, is a fearsome figure with immense strength befitting a clan head. He had long desired to partake in the Land of Fire's power struggle, but as the war concluded, the opportunity never arose. Frustrated, Yukeshi shifted his sights to other nations. Particularly a small, conflict-averse country. Report to the clan leader. News has arrived. A subordinate announced, knocking on Yukeshi's door. Taking the detailed report, Yukeshi learned of the year-long turmoil in the Land of Rain. A year ago, a mysterious faction invaded the Land of Rain, dismantled its daimyo regime, and took control of the nation. The borders were sealed, few outsiders knew what transpired within. The Fuma clan had paid a steep price to obtain this intelligence, but their efforts finally bore fruit. As Yukeshi carefully read the report, he muttered. It seems your judgment was correct. Of course. Came a voice from within the room. Yukeshi's shadow quivered, and half of his face became shrouded in darkness. It seemed as though his shadow had come alive. Black Zetsu, is this the Moon clan you spoke of? Yukeshi Fuma asked in a low voice. He, none but them could wield such astonishing puppet techniques. Black Zetsu replied. No, this has surpassed the realm of puppetry. It's more like a form of divine artistry. Yukeshi murmured, evident in his tone. The shadow was none other than Black Zetsu, the will of Kaguya Otsutsuki and the mastermind behind countless calamities in the shinobi world. Manipulating wars and reviving his mother required a strong ally. The Fuma clan was a product of Black Zetsu's grooming, with Yukishi as his hand-picked disciple. The clan leader followed Black Zetsu's instructions without question. In fact, Black Zetsu had long since uncovered the inner workings of the Land of Rain. Having survived since ancient times, Black Zetsu possessed countless hidden powers, including a small number of White Zetsu clones. Though lacking in combat capability, these clones excelled in intelligence gathering, able to infiltrate even under the five Kage's watchful eyes. A testament to their effectiveness. The reason Black Zetsu had Yukishi Fuma conduct the investigation was simple: it intended to leverage the Fuma clan's strength to rekindle the flames of war in the Land of Fire. If the Senju and Uchiha refused to fight, then external forces would force their hand. As the embodiment of Kaguya Otsutsuki's will and her so-called third child, Black Zetsu had one greatest fear: anything related to his two brothers. During the era of the ninja sect, he acted with extreme caution, avoiding any overt schemes. After enduring countless years, when the ninja sect finally dissolved, Black Zetsu thought it could live peacefully for a while. However, its brief respite was shattered when it discovered that the descendants of its second brother had returned from the moon. Indeed, the Moon Clan Black Zetsu referred to was none other than the Otsutsuki on the moon, who had descended to the earth seeking vengeance against the Hyuga. And by extension, the entire shinobi world. The reason for sealing the Land of Rain and barring entry or exit was simple: Otsutsuki Sujito intended to amass a puppet army to exact his revenge. Realizing this, Black Zetsu hatched a new plan: why not align the Fuma clan with the Moon clan to reignite a war against the Uchiha? War was the only way to temper the brothers Black Zetsu was manipulating, guiding them toward his ultimate design. As for obstacles, Black Zetsu had contingencies for those as well, including the troublesome child adept in space-time ninjutsu. By using a White Zetsu clone to impersonate the Uzumaki princess, Black Zetsu lured him into a carefully crafted trap. The space-time seal used to confine him was, of course, Black Zetsu's handiwork. As a creation of pure spiritual energy and the ultimate manifestation of Yin Chakra, no one rivaled Black Zetsu in sealing techniques. Even the founding of the Land of Whirlpools by Uzumaki Ashina was part of his machinations. While it served immediate political purposes, its true intent was to lay the groundwork for the eventual eradication of the Uzumaki clan. From Fuma Yukishi to Uzumaki Ashina, Black Zetsu had strings on countless families and factions across the ninja world. Peace? That was nothing but an illusion. Under Black Zetsu's manipulation, Fuma Yukishi decided to send emissaries to the Land of Rain to discuss an alliance with the Moon clan, aiming to take down the Uchiha clan. The environment of the Land of Rain was harsh and its population sparse. Nothing like the resource-rich Fire country. However, with Black Zetsu's influence, Fuma Yukishi believed that he could swiftly help his allies establish a puppet army. The plan was to first destroy the Uchiha, then annihilate the Senju, and finally, eliminate the Hyuga. With that, they would dominate the Land of Fire and set their sights on unifying the entire ninja world. It wasn't that Fuma Yukishi was foolish, rather, Black Zetsu had been subtly planting these ideas in his mind since his childhood, convincing him that he was the chosen one, destined to end the chaos and bring about a great new era. There's no time to waste. Let's set off now. Fuma Yukishi said. Agreed. Responded his ally. For the Moon clan, their goal was clear: revenge on the entire ninja world. However, Otsutsuki Sujito soon discovered that things were not as easy as he had imagined. The shinobi world, spurred by the shinobi sect's legacy, had evolved. Advanced jutsu emerged, leaving even him astonished. The Moon clan's reliance on green energy orbs seemed laughably outdated. After suffering losses, Sujito decided to amass more puppets and learn shinobi techniques. So when Yukishi offered aid, Sujito agreed readily. Fool. Did you think my goal was mere revenge on the Hyuga? Sujito sneered inwardly. Both leaders believed they were manipulating the other, oblivious to Black Zetsu's masterful strings. Elsewhere, Uzumaki Mido wandered the shinobi world. Half a year into her travels, the Uzumaki princess had essentially run away from home. Ever since learning of her father's actions, she had been contemplating leaving her clan. At the very least, this princess wanted to confirm if Kyosuke was still alive. Following various leads, she discovered a mysterious figure operating in the underground bounty system. A figure resembling Kyosuke. Though others might not notice, Mido had spent enough time with him to spot familiar traits. Please let it be you, she whispered. Yet, before she could find him, Mido caught the unwanted attention of human traffickers. Chapter 84, The Hidden Snake Technique, Kyosuke in action. Recently, a large number of bounty hunting missions suddenly emerged from the underground money exchange. No matter the level of strength, any ninja could be used for trading, as long as the body remained mostly intact. Once this news spread, bounty hunters from all over the place grew excited. Jonin level ninjas were usually off limits for most people, but there are no such concerns when it comes to Chunin or Geinin. Especially the Geinin level ninjas. Many small families and wealthy merchants had a few Geinin level ninjas as guards. These individuals, typically weak and lacking in significant jutsu, were the easiest to target. Wandering aimlessly through the forest, Mido was secretly watched by a group of bounty hunters. A ninja's attire, looks young, probably just a Geinin level ninja. Red hair, could she be from the land of whirlpools? Haha, looks like today is our lucky day. The price for regular ninjas was fixed, but rare individuals, even if they were still Geinin level ninjas, could fetch tens or even hundreds of times the price. Having run the underground money exchange for many years, Black Zetsu and the organization behind it had the means to offer exceedingly high rewards. Not to mention Geinin and Chunin level ninjas, if Kyosuke were to bring Tajima Uchiha tomorrow, Black Zetsu would still be able to pay a price that matched the Uchiha clan leader's worth. Little girl, all alone? Several rogue ninjas appeared and surrounded Mido. Noticing this, the young girl with the bun hairstyle spoke coldly. I suggest you leave quickly, or else there will be a few more corpses around me. Haha, little girl, your chest isn't big, but your temper is. Today, I'll teach your family a lesson. Before he could finish, a kunai pierced his forehead. Mido, not wanting trouble, turned into a ruthless avenger, quickly dispatching all the rogue ninjas with ease. Trying to use me to make money. Maybe in your next life. Mido bent down to pick up her pink kunai, gave a cold snort, and walked away with a graceful, carefree demeanor. Not far behind her, a strange white figure flashed by, unnoticed by anyone. In the land of fire, dark currents surged as the Fuma clan and the land of rain secretly worked together. While others may not notice, Kyosuke, however, had seen through it all. He was, after all, the top performer on the Money Exchange's achievement board for 7 months in a row. With a single word, he could have countless middlemen bring him the information he needed. The Fuma clan is definitely planning something behind the scenes. Kyosuke realized, knowing that if they made a move, the Uchiha would be their first target. With nothing urgent to do, Kyosuke decided to investigate alone. After all, he was a dead man. And no one would suspect him. Even if I can't find any leads, I'll kill a few annoying ninjas. At least it won't be a wasted trip. Once in Fuma's territory, Kyosuke summoned a small snake and used a jutsu to hide inside the snake's belly for a stealthy infiltration. Ninjutsu, poisonous snake concealment technique. Inside the snake's belly was a barrier that blocked detection, allowing Kyosuke to hide without anyone noticing his presence. This was truly an essential technique for infiltration and assassination. The summoning contract with the 3 Great Sage Lands was not just about providing combat power, it was much more intricate. Quick, take him inside. The small snake slowly slithered through the Fuma clan's territory. It quickly used its sensory abilities to locate a suspicious target. It was a team of rogue ninjas dressed in pirate-like outfits, driving a suspicious carriage, passing through a checkpoint guarded by Fuma clan sentries. The summoning beast informed it that the carriage was filled with a faint scent of blood and the overpowering stench of decaying corpses, which the preservatives inside could not conceal. Combining this with the intelligence from the underground exchange, Kyosuke deduced that this must be the cargo being prepared for transport to the land of rain. Follow them. About 15 minutes later, the carriage stopped at a warehouse entrance. The rogue ninjas, having received their bounty, happily departed, while the Fuma clan's ninjas began unloading the cargo, grumbling and cursing as they dealt with the bodies. What is this all about? A male ninja complained. We don't fight enemies or invade foreign lands, and yet all we do is handle these disgusting things. I feel like I'm turning into a corpse maggot. Keep your voice down. Another, older ninja whispered. Just endure it. Don't forget what happens if we offend those people. Not long ago, an emissary from the land of rain had come to negotiate. Someone from Fuma's clan had accidentally offended them, and the leader had immediately executed them. In the end, the entire group was punished, while the outsiders left arrogantly. This incident left many disgruntled, but no one dared speak out due to the clan leader's authority. Ugh, the clan leader is acting like he's lost his mind. Who says he's not? What can those guys from the land of rain even offer us? Enough talking. Let's just get to work. While they were talking, the 2 men didn't notice a small snake watching them from behind. Slowly emerging from the snake's mouth, Kyosuke, cloaked in a cape, swiftly and silently knocked both of them unconscious. The entire process was clean and efficient, making barely a sound. Approaching the older man, Kyosuke peeled open his eyelids, and his 3 Tomoe Sharingan began to glow with an eerie light. Memory reading. Depending on the strength of the Sharingan, different abilities could be unlocked. Basic techniques like illusion jutsu, hypnosis, and memory reading were among the first, eventually reaching the ability to erase specific memories. Given Kyosuke's current Sharingan power, he could only perform memory reading, as stronger targets would resist the mental strain. In the memory fragments, he quickly found the scene of the day in question, and was greatly surprised. The moon's Otsutsuki? How did these people descend from the moon, and why are they working with the Fuma clan? From the memory of the middle-aged ninja, he learned that not only had he seen the dominant Moon clan, but also that the Fuma clan had been providing supplies and teaching jutsu to them. At this moment, Kyosuke finally pieced everything together. The operations behind the money exchange and the Fuma clan's involvement were all part of a hidden effort to support the Otsutsuki from the moon. Their goals could be many, perhaps even to invade the Land of Fire. Kyosuke speculated that the Fuma clan leader likely had no idea of the true nature of the Moon clan, unaware that they were a group bent on destroying the ninja world. Oh, perhaps it wasn't the case before, but since Hyuga's return from the moon, he suspected that the enemy had been dreaming of revenge ever since. As for how the two sides had formed this alliance, Kyosuke had some guesses, but he wasn't ready to confirm them just yet. The root of the problem lies with the Fuma clan leader. Finding him might reveal the truth behind it all. Chapter 85, The 3,000-Strong Puppet Army. In the clan leader's study, Fuma Yukishi was reviewing a series of letters. This month's expenditures totaled 70 million ryo, with most of it invested in building the Moon clan's army. The clan's negative sentiments are steadily growing. We need to find a way to alleviate them. Skimming past issues like military preparations, transportation, and trade, Yukishi's gaze landed on the most critical piece of data. The puppet army has surpassed 3,000 in number and continues to grow rapidly. This single accomplishment made all the previous investments worthwhile. It's almost time. The Fuma clan will soon reign supreme over the entire Land of Fire. Senju Batsuma, Tajima Uchiha. I'll show you who the true master of this world is. Fuma Yukishi declared. In a corner of the eaves, Kyosuke, hidden within a snake's belly, sneered silently. If it weren't for considering the summoning beast's feelings, he would have spat on the ground in disdain. Tajima was a scheming villain, and Batsuma was an obstinate fool, but at least they were at the pinnacle of the Warring States period. And this Yukishi? What was he, to even dare to measure up? As Kyosuke silently ridiculed him, the Fuma clan leader's shadow began to tremble. Before long, half of Yukishi's body was completely engulfed by a dark shadow. Black Zetsu had appeared. Taking down those two fools won't be difficult. Black Zetsu said, also focused on the intelligence report. 3,000 isn't enough. We'll need at least 7,000. The human puppets of the Moon clan are designed to sustain themselves in battle. Every enemy they kill becomes their nourishment. Black Zetsu explained. When enough resources are accumulated, we'll launch a blitzkrieg to annihilate several prominent clans. By the time others react, the Land of Fire will no longer have the strength to resist us. As he spoke, Black Zetsu silently muttered to himself, when the time comes, I can execute my plan. To awaken the Mangekyo Sharingan in Indra's reincarnation. I'll bring him under my control and wait for the other one to mature. When the powers of yin and yang combine, he will become the vessel for Mother's release from her seal. The devoted Black Zetsu had meticulously planned everything. It was merely waiting for the Moon clan to complete the puppet army. However, even the cunning Black Zetsu was unaware that Otsutsuki Sujito's descent this time was not to assist, but to destroy the entire shinobi world. While Black Zetsu thought it was using Sujito, the grieving clan leader of the Moon clan who had lost his child was also manipulating Black Zetsu. If the day ever came when he truly ascended to rule over the Land of Fire, it was highly likely that things wouldn't go as this devoted son had envisioned. Fortunately, perhaps Black Zetsu wouldn't have to wait long for that day of disappointment. So, it really is him. Kyosuke muttered as he stood up involuntarily. Ever since the issue began to involve money exchange offices, he had suspected Black Zetsu's involvement. He hadn't expected the Fuma clan to be mere puppets, with a true mastermind being none other than Kaguya's third son. As his emotions stirred slightly, Kyosuke suddenly noticed Black Zetsu's shadow starting to detach from its host, its gaze shifting as though searching for something in the room. It didn't take long for its eyes to lock onto him, meeting Kyosuke's gaze through the snake's skin. Damn it, are you kidding me? Just as he prepared to urge the snake to flee, a pitch-black rod shot forth, pinning the snake's body to the ground. This was a yin-yang style black rod, crafted by a person who possessed both yin and yang chakra attributes through yin-yang style techniques. Anyone struck by it would experience a disruption in their internal energy, rendering them incapable of molding chakra. Essentially, it was an advanced version of Gentle Fist, not even requiring a strike to the body's pressure points. Additionally, those with the Rinnegan, such as the resurrected Madara and Rinnegan Obito, could freely create these black rods. Fuma Yukishi's mastery of this technique was entirely thanks to Black Zetsu. Without its assistance, there was no way someone of his caliber could grasp the nature transformation of yin-yang chakra. Staring at the dead snake on the ground, Black Zetsu frowned. Could my senses have been wrong? It had clearly detected an unusual mental fluctuation, yet now there seemed to be no sign of anything amiss. Mr. Black Zetsu, is something wrong? Nothing, let's continue. Just as Black Zetsu was about to give up its search, a white figure suddenly emerged from the ground. It was one of the white Zetsu clones, carefully preserved. After thousands of years of use, the remaining stock was already scarce, so Black Zetsu was particularly cautious about deploying them. I've found the whereabouts of that Uzumaki girl, Mido. White Zetsu reported, providing a piece of rather valuable information. Uzumaki Mido. Black Zetsu's eyes narrowed, and its mind immediately conjured several sinister schemes. For now, the priority was to capture the Uzumaki princess. Yukishi, I'll need you to dispatch 2 reliable subordinates for this task. Black Zetsu instructed, fully aware of Mido's formidable power. With her mastery of the Yin Seal, ordinary ninja would only throw their lives away in vain. To ensure success, they needed elite Jonin-level fighters. Leave it to me. Fuma Yukishi nodded, rising to make the necessary arrangements. Meanwhile, Black Zetsu, still uneasy, moved forward to inspect the dead snake. Upon closer examination, it truly noticed something unusual. A creature from Rishi Cave? Black Zetsu's gaze darkened instantly. The other 2 of the 3 great sage regions, Mount Mayabaku and the Shikatsu Forest, were closely connected to Black Zetsu's 2 elder brothers. The only exception was Rishi Cave. But who could truly understand the stance of the White Snake Sage, a creature that had lived for thousands of years? Let's hope I'm just overthinking things. Black Zetsu muttered darkly. Outside the Fuma clan's territory. Thanks to the pre-marked Flying Thunder God coordinates, Kyosuke successfully escaped being pinned down by the Black Rod, avoiding the disastrous fate of losing his combat abilities. The rod's effects were troublesome, a single misstep could render a fighter powerless. Using the dying senses of his summoned snake, Kyosuke caught sight of White Zetsu's appearance and learned that their group had set their sights on the traveling Mido. White Zetsu. Kyosuke's eyes flickered. He had something he needed to verify. Back when Mido ambushed him, it had put him in the greatest danger he'd faced since arriving in this world. But upon reflection, Kyosuke found her behavior during the encounter to be rather strange. Combining this with Otsutsuki Ishiki's warning and White Zetsu's sudden involvement, a bold theory emerged in his mind. The person who had placed a sealing technique on him that day. Was it possible that she weren't actually Mido at all? No matter what the truth was, he had to see it for himself. As for whether this was a trap, Kyosuke touched the Tomoe marking on his shoulder and smiled faintly, exuding an unshakable confidence. Having replicated Orochimaru's signature cursed seal, and harnessing the power of diluted natural energy, Kyosuke had achieved the combat capacity of an elite Jonin. With his diverse and intricate offensive techniques, he could even hold his own against clan leader-level opponents. At this moment, Kyosuke had truly ascended to the pinnacle of the warring state's power structure. Focusing his mind and calming his breath, he extended his senses to locate the Flying Thunder God coordinates in his range. It didn't take long for Kyosuke to pinpoint Uzumaki Mido's location. What he hadn't considered yet was this: if the culprit truly turned out to be the Uzumaki princess, what choice would he make then? Chapter 86, Cursed Seal 2, The Wailing Chidori Yin Seal, Release. Mido's power was incredibly strong, especially after unlocking the seal on her forehead. In a short time, she would possess chakra equal to that of a clan leader. To put it in modern terms, her chakra level was at least at the 5-card level. The sudden surge of power allowed her to use the difficult-to-control adamantine sealing chains, which she had previously struggled with. Even with just 2 chains, she could kill a formidable Chunin in an instant. However, the real opponent she faced now was a battle-hardened elite Jonin. Not only was he extraordinarily powerful, but his combat experience was also incredibly rich. Had he not been trying to capture her alive, Mido would have likely already been defeated. Do you still want to keep going? The elite Jonin, named Fuma Kinji, was a slender man in his 30s. Despite his frail appearance, he was highly skilled in taijutsu, and Mido dared not let him get close. Just moments ago, she had taken a kick from him, and she felt as though her internal organs had shifted. Now, every step she took caused a sharp, stabbing pain in her abdomen. Why bother? Fuma Kinji continued to pressure her. Didn't the princess of the Uzumaki clan get captured by the Uchiha as well? Oh, that's right. Maybe I'm just not as attractive as that Uchiha genius. The proud princess of the Uzumaki clan, throwing away everything to stay in enemy hands. What a disgrace to the Uzumaki name. Such a pity. Fuma Kinji sneered coldly, then uttered a sentence that immediately made Mido lose control. The boy is already dead. I heard his remains were unrecognizable. A heart-wrenching blow. Not only did he want to capture her, but he also sought to destroy her spirit. This way, he wouldn't need to worry about the girl escaping. Shut up. Mido's chakra exploded, her red hair standing on end. The adamantine ceiling chains danced in the wind, making her look like a fearsome demon. Kyosuke won't die so easily. The one who's going to die is you. Forcing a chakra explosion, Mido quickly closed the distance to the enemy, despite her legs beginning to spasm from muscle cramps. Even so, her eyes remained cold and unwavering, with only one thought in her mind: to kill the man who had spoken such disrespectful words. However, the enormous gap in their strength wouldn't change just because of her extreme emotions. In fact, the reckless attack only exposed weaknesses that shouldn't have appeared. With a standard evasive body technique, Fumikenji dodged her desperate strike, then swiftly drew a kunai, planning to make a small wound on the girl's body first. As long as she doesn't die, that's all that matters, was the order given to him by the clan leader. At this critical moment, a figure draped in a black cloak suddenly appeared next to Mido. One hand wrapped around her waist, while the other pressed firmly on the enemy's arm. The newcomer was none other than Kyosuke Uchiha, who had been watching from the sidelines for a while. Good work. Kyosuke flashed a bright smile at the girl, whose expression was one of disbelief. From Mido's earlier actions, Kyosuke had already figured out a lot of things. Some things didn't need to be asked. Both of them understood it without words. As Kyosuke held the girl in his arms, Fumikenji wasn't happy about it. "Who are you?" Fumikenji frowned, raising his left hand, ready to deliver a deadly blow to the arrogant youth. However, the next moment, several venomous snakes suddenly erupted from the boy's sleeves, forcing him to retreat and abandon his attack. "Let me deal with him first." Releasing Mido from his arms, Kyosuke turned to face the enemy, knowing full well that this was a tricky opponent. Without any intention of testing the waters, he directly unsealed his cursed seal and let the diluted natural energy flow through his entire body. The black markings covered his body, transforming Kyosuke into what appeared to be a handsome vampire. Cursed Seal 2, activate. His cursed seal pattern was reminiscent of Sasuke's. This was done intentionally by Kyosuke. Not for strength, but for the flight ability it provided. With a powerful flap of his wings, Kyosuke gradually ascended into the air, his Sharingan activating. He looked down on his enemy with a cold gaze. Sharingan? Fumikenji's tone was filled with disbelief. How was it that the Uchiha Sharingan had become so common? Anyone could now casually summon a 3-Tomoe user. Moreover, the opponent didn't seem very old, at most around 13 or 14 years old. At that age, Fumikenji himself had still been struggling at the Chunin level. Suddenly, his gaze landed on the overjoyed Mido, who was filled with joy, and a bold thought flashed through his mind. "You're Kyosuke Uchiha?" Fumikenji demanded loudly. "Hey." Kyosuke slowly formed hand seals, mocking as he spoke. "I didn't expect you to be smart right before you die. ZZT ZZT ZZT." The familiar sound of Chidori rang out, but this time, the lightning in Kyosuke's hand was no longer pure blue of the original technique. Black lightning? Mido stared at the scene in shock. With her extraordinary sensory abilities, she could vaguely sense something unusual. She glanced at the surrounding ninja, and after a moment's thought, she decided to trust Kyosuke and ignore Fumikenji's presence. Her mission was simply to make sure no one disturbed Kyosuke's fight. "Ugh, every time I use this, it feels like my arm is going to tear apart." The black lightning was a combination of Chidori and the cursed seal's energy. Wailing Chidori. It was the same technique Sasuke used to knock out Naruto in the Valley of the End. Its power was incredibly destructive, even elite Jonin have a hard time resisting it. Looking down at Fumikenji, who was waiting cautiously, Kyosuke spoke coldly. "Don't move." What did that mean? Before the enemy could react, Kyosuke suddenly flashed, appearing directly in front of him. Flying Thunder God technique. While saving Mido earlier, he had inscribed a space-time coordinate on the enemy. Most people would simply teleport to strike, but given the enemy's strength, Kyosuke decided to use his strongest attack. It proved to be a very wise decision. Kyosuke didn't possess the lightning-fast reflexes of Minato no Mikaze, who called dominate the shinobi world. This meant that after he instantly appeared, there would be a slight delay in detecting and taking action. Although the time was short, it was enough for the enemy to react slightly. He couldn't defend, but Fumikenji managed to move his body just enough with his instincts, preventing the Chidori from piercing a fatal blow. It granted him a brief moment to breathe, though it wouldn't change his fate. Futile struggle. The black lightning instantly tore through Fumikenji's body. He could have died peacefully, but since he wanted to be tortured, he made sure to leave no part of him intact. Kyosuke, feeling his body being torn apart in pain, gritted his teeth and deactivated the cursed seal mode. As expected, this thing wasn't good. Prolonged use placed a huge burden on the body. Fortunately, he had healing medicine, but for someone else, they'd probably run into serious problems sooner or later. Kyosuke. After dealing with the remaining enemies, Mito leaped into his arms. Rubbing her beautiful hair, Kyosuke spoke gently. I'm back. Chapter 87, What's the point of disguise if it gets exposed? Beside the campfire, the two recounted their experiences over the past year. You idiot. Mito scolded, hands on her hips, as though she wanted to flick Kyosuke's forehead hard enough to send him flying. How could you be so easily fooled? My fault. Kyosuke replied with a helpless smile, thinking to himself that, aside from Kibai, who could sense malice, most people would struggle to detect White Zetsu's disguises. That thing could even mimic chakra and mental fluctuations. No wonder it was a creation of the God Tree and considered a powerful tool by Kaguya to resist her clan. By the way, why did you run away from home? Kyosuke asked, perplexed. Why would a princess abandon her comfortable life to roam as a vagabond, nearly getting abducted by Black Zetsu in the process? Mito hesitated at his question. She couldn't possibly admit that she left because she refused to believe he was truly dead and had scoured every corner of the Land of Fire in search of him. If she said that, this guy would surely hold it over her forever. No, she needed to come up with an excuse to fool him. Cough. How would a commoner like you understand a princess's thoughts? She said, tilting her head proudly. Traveling far and wide, gaining knowledge. Do you get it? Seeing Kyosuke's skeptical look, her eyes darted, and she suddenly raised her voice to change the subject. Tell me, why have you been hiding all this time? Is it because the snake princesses at the Richi's cave is too beautiful? She is quite beautiful. Kyosuke replied honestly. I'm telling you, when I grow up, I'll definitely be even more beautiful. The bean sprout of a girl puffed her cheeks into satisfaction. We'll see. Damn it, stinky Kyosuke. After the playful argument, Kyosuke finally shared his thoughts. I originally wanted to return, but I discovered something unusual in the Land of Rain. Having met Hyuga Yaoi and knowing much about their relationship, Mito had even helped seal out Satsuki Chakra before. With that in mind, Kyosuke didn't hide anything and detailed the events involving the moon. So back at the Hyuga clan's territory, you guys actually secretly went to the moon behind my back? Mito, with her hair tied in round buns, was utterly shocked. So, the pioneer of lunar exploration was right beside her all along? It took her a while to come to terms with missing out on such an extraordinary experience. Clearly, her priorities were a little skewed. Unaware of her inner turmoil, Kyosuke continued explaining. To investigate covertly, I have to go to the Land of Rain. There was something else he hadn't said. One of the advantages of staying in the shadows was avoiding the prying eyes of those with ill intentions. Had he stayed in the open, Black Zetsu might have successfully misled him. His goal was to infiltrate the Land of Rain, investigate, and find a way to destroy the production chain of those human puppets. Otherwise, it wouldn't be long before the Moon Clan would become uncontrollable. Hearing his plan, Mito immediately raised her hand, volunteering to rid the ninja world of this menace. Take you with me? Kyosuke eyed her round buns and the defiant look on her face that screamed, refuse me, and I'll bite you. In the end, he could only sigh and give in. She was proficient in adamantine sealing chains, making her stronger than the average Jonin. Especially her expertise in sealing techniques might prove crucial in certain moments. Come to think of it, having her along might not be so bad. But let's make one thing clear, you must follow my orders, or I'll kick you back to the Land of Whirlpools. Got it. Mito's cheerful skipping suggested she hadn't heard a word he said. This girl. Mission failed? Not only did Fumayukishi lose his composure, but even Black Zetsu, lurking in his shadow, couldn't but shiver slightly. A failure involving an elite Jonin class operative tasked with capturing a mere Uzumaki girl? It wasn't like they were up against someone like Uzumaki Ashina. How could they fail? Due to the rarity of White Zetsu clones, Black Zetsu hadn't personally sent it to monitor the mission. Unexpectedly, this oversight had led to such a significant setback. Black Zetsu-sama. Yukishi growled through gritted teeth, attempting to control his anger. Do you know who's responsible? I'll kill them right now. I'll find out soon. Black Zetsu, his voice fading away. Inside the room, Fumayukishi lowered his head, concealing his expression as much as possible. Black Zetsu, I'm no longer the persecuted branch family orphan of the past. He muttered. Some things. It's better not to push too far. A few minutes later, Yukishi straightened up, his demeanor returning to normal as if the vengeful person from earlier had never existed. Unaware of this, Black Zetsu had already left to investigate. The Land of Rain was situated at the crossroads of the lands of Earth, Fire, and Wind. Its geography destined it to be a battlefield, unable to enjoy lasting peace. Driving a wagon disguised as a traveling merchant's cart, Kyosuke entered the rain-drenched land. As for the esteemed Princess Mido, naturally, she stayed inside to avoid getting wet. According to her, too much rain stunted growth. Kyosuke highly doubted this claim, suspecting she was just making excuses, possibly believing some rumor she had heard. The land of rain, constantly shrouded in a drizzly environment, had many buildings made primarily of steel, with a considerable number of stone houses. Every building featured countless steel pipes standing tall, used for drainage and water flow, creating a unique and beautiful sight in the ninja world. Kyosuke, I'm hungry. That food stall over there looks pretty good. Buy me some candied fruit skewers. Kyosuke. 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 Finally his patience wore thin, he grabbed a whip and stormed into the cart. Ah. What are you doing? Can't you just speak nicely? A few minutes later, the round-bun princess reluctantly took the reins, steering the cart through the rain as water dripped steadily from her straw hat. As for Kyosuke, he lay comfortably in the cart, taking a nap. If this little bean sprout didn't get some discipline, she'd be impossible to handle. Wake me up when we arrive, he said, settling down. And keep an eye out for those human puppets. Humphrey. Ignoring her displeased snort, Kyosuke focused on his plans. The Moon Clan's puppet-making techniques weren't something just anyone could replicate. Instead of wasting energy on the puppets themselves, finding the puppeteer behind them would be far more effective. This required him to take risks and most likely attract unwanted attention of the enemy. Lost in his thoughts, Kyosuke eventually dozed off. The last image in his mind before he fell asleep was the shining Tenseigan in Otsutsuki Sujito's eyes. If he could take it, he was sure that Yaoi would be thrilled with this gift. Clang. He was abruptly woken by a sudden jolt. Pulling back the curtain groggily, Kyosuke saw Mido, disguised, being questioned by a group of ninjas. After a quick glance, he identified two of them as Moon Clan human puppets. It seemed he'd found the right place. It's fine, she can handle a simple interrogation, he thought. Before he could step out, however, Mido punched one of the ninjas square inches the face, sending him sprawling to the ground. Kyosuke froze. I've been exposed, Mido announced nonchalantly. Chapter 88, Puppets? No, that's a treasure trove of points. Since Mido had already made her move, Kyosuke naturally couldn't just watch her get bullied. By the way, I've never fought against a human puppet before. He unsheathed his Kusanagi sword, with lightning crackling along its blade, and in the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of the enemy, cleaving through the green chakra ball that had been shot at him. Still the same, only able to shoot those little chakra projectiles, huh? Whether it was the puppet master or their small creations, in battle, aside from taijutsu, all they could do was shoot those chakra energy balls. It seemed the teachings of the Fuma clan still hadn't made much progress. Turning his body into several afterimages, he used the teleportation jutsu to confuse the enemy's tracking. Seizing the opportunity, Kyosuke swiftly closed the distance and aimed a sword thrust at the Moon's clan member, the jutsu user. Don't even think about it. The enemy sneered and, with a thought, ordered one of the nearby puppets to leap forward and block the attack with its body. The sharp blade pierced through its heart, but the attack that should have been fatal didn't stop the puppet's movement. At that moment, Kyosuke finally understood the difficulty of dealing with these things. No wonder they dared to make such bold statements. It seems that Otsutsuki Hamura still left some hidden resources behind. With no vital weak points, and no need for manual control, the puppets could be operated with just the user's thoughts. Compared to the puppet units of Hidden Sand Village in later times, the craftsmanship here was far superior. Sigh. Kyosuke sighed quietly. He knew deep down that this chaos wouldn't be so easily resolved. Seeing the enemy firmly clutching the sword, preventing him from pulling it back, Kyosuke had no choice but to temporarily abandon his weapon. Just as he stepped back, several basketball-sized chakra balls swarmed and engulfed the puppet that had been struck by the sword. Aside from being durable, they can also be used for baiting tactics. Thoughts constantly raced in his mind as his hands moved swiftly. Before the next wave of chakra balls could come, he had already completed the necessary hand signs. Using the Flying Thunder God technique, he teleported back to the Kusanagi sword's location, avoiding the dense light ball attacks. He then unleashed a burst of flame that engulfed two puppets in the distance. Fire style, Great Fireball. The intense heat immediately shattered the puppets' bodies. With such heavy damage, they could no longer continue to function. Few didn't expect this to be a bit tricky. Just as he was about to continue his actions, a sudden system prompt nearly caused him to lose control of his expression. System notification, killed the Moon Clan human puppet, gain 230 points. System notification, killed the Moon Clan human puppet, gained 180 points. These things can reward me with points? Kyosuke widened his eyes, and his entire mental state shifted. Points, 67,510, Glancing at his current points, he silently started to calculate something in his mind. Done. It seemed that he had made a firm decision. Kyosuke suddenly exploded with all his strength and quickly dealt with the last puppet. He captured the enemy's puppet master, used his Sharingan to probe his recent memories, and then snapped the man's neck, tossing his body into a nearby pond. I remember Black Zetsu talking about how many puppets the Moon's clan had. Seems like it's 3,000. Numbly, he returned to the cart, packing up his things, feeling that the past year had been wasted. If he had discovered the situation in the Land of Rain sooner, his points might have already reached the level required to exchange for the Mangekyo Sharingan. What a miscalculation. Truly a grave miscalculation. Of course, Kyosuke likely wouldn't realize it now, but had he come a year earlier, there might not have been enough human puppets for him to exploit so freely. Speaking of which, perhaps he should thank Black Zetsu and the Fuma clan for their help. As he sharpened his blade, preparing to make a big move in the Land of Rain, Mido, unaware, thought she had caused some trouble. Alright, I'm sorry. Don't be so stern. The bun-haired girl relented, a rare display of submission. Huh? Kyosuke blinked, finally snapping his attention back to reality. It seemed like she had misunderstood something. With a slight turn of his eyes, Kyosuke suddenly spoke in a low voice. Now that you know, let me ask you, does the Uzumaki clan have particularly strong sensory abilities? Of course. Upon hearing this, Mido's tail almost seemed to stand up in excitement. Let me tell you, aside from the Hyuga clan, no one can compare to us Uzumaki when it comes to sensory skills. Even the Senju? Their chances of having sensory ninjas are lower than ours. She admitted reluctantly, before striking a triumphant pose, hands on her hips, proudly continued. If you're asking for my help, no problem, with me around, you won't be trapped by the enemy. It seems your sensory abilities are really impressive. With a small compliment, Kyosuke's expression became serious as he said. But it seems you misunderstood. I'm not asking you to help me hide. I plan to go on the offensive, to destroy the foundation of their strength directly at the source. Huh? Mido was stunned, her mouth slightly agape. In the depths of the Land of Rain, Moon Clan's temporary base. Ugh! Otsutsuki Sujito clutched his throbbing eyes, his expression twisted with pain. To avenge his child and wage war on the ninja world, he had even sought help from the rebel forces. The sheer strength required to challenge the Otsutsuki clan's centuries-long rule was proof of their power. If it weren't for the incomplete Tenseigan, Otsutsuki Sujito would have long lost his position as a leader. During the battle on the moon, the Hyuga clan had left behind several corpses. Sujito had planned to seize their Byakugan, but a mysterious force incinerated the remnants entirely, robbing him of the spoils. Outsiders might not understand, but Otsutsuki Sujito himself knew that his eyes could no longer last long. Without replenishing its dwindling ocular power, the Tenseigan would never evolve. Now, even his vision was beginning to blur. I have to find a solution, he muttered. Otsutsuki Sujito's plan was simple: capture the pure Hyuga bloodline, obtain an untainted Byakugan, and resurrect his Tenseigan. Once he mastered this power, no one in the ninja world would be able to stand against him. Ha 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 ha, I am the true savior, he declared, his laughter descending into madness. Only by destroying the ninja world created by the Six Paths Sage will humanity be given a chance to be reborn. The pain of losing his child had already driven the man, who once didn't want to start a war, into madness. Knock knock knock. Urgent knocking interrupted Sujito's thoughts, pulling him back to reality. Suppressing the discomfort in his eyes, he shouted. Go away. Didn't I tell you not to disturb me? But, clan leader, we leave. Hearing his furious roar, the messenger fled in terror. Compared to their life, the news they had seemed much less pressing. For now, let's avoid disturbing the clan leader further, murmured one of the guards, glancing uneasily at the door. Elsewhere, in a corner of the Land of Rain. Kyosuke, 7 o'clock direction. Got it. Following Mido's guidance, Kyosuke continued to search for the human puppet force's tracks. Whenever he encountered large units, he avoided them. Smaller squads, however, were swiftly eliminated. For a moment, it felt as though he had returned to the days when he earned the title of Ashura. Chapter 89, Rebellious Otsutsuki Takoyas. From hundreds of meters away, Kyosuke accurately detected the movements of his enemies. They've started hunting me down? And with just this scale? Looking at the distant squad, he instinctively frowned. It wasn't because there were too many enemies. On the contrary, Kyosuke found the search party too small. Over the past few days, he had launched more than a dozen attacks. The enemy teams ranged in size. Sometimes just 2 or 3 individuals, and at other times 7 or 8 puppet soldiers moving together in unison. The points he gained fluctuated, mostly hovering around the level of gain-in, earning him anywhere from 20 to 100 points per kill. Even so, he had managed to accumulate nearly 8,000 points in total. Pulling out a uniquely designed kunai, Kyosuke used his excellent throwing skills to hurl it quickly toward the puppet squad in the distance. After several days of battle, he had gradually come to understand the characteristics of the Moon's clan puppets. First, these creatures had no vital points. Neither their hearts nor necks were vulnerable to fatal attacks. In essence, they were nothing more than animated corpses. Second, slashing attacks had minimal effect on them. The most effective method was always to use high-powered ninjutsu to completely destroy the puppets. Alternatively, a member of the Hyuga clan could use the Byakugan to locate and destroy the spiritual core hidden within the puppets' bodies. Lacking that ability, Kyosuke could only rely on his high-powered ninjutsu to take them down. The kunai sliced through the rain and reached the puppets in an instant. At that moment, the puppet squad detected Kyosuke's presence. 3 puppets raised their palms in unison, and in the next moment, a barrage of light chakra orbs engulfed the spot where Kyosuke had been standing. Boom. 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 Is it over? The puppet master hiding in the distance hesitated slightly in his thoughts. Over the past few days, their enemy had appeared and disappeared like a phantom, causing no small amount of trouble for the lower-ranking members of their clan. To be honest, the puppet master himself didn't believe the fight could end so easily. ZZT. The crackling sound of Chidori Stream drew the man's attention. Using the Flying Thunder God technique, Kyosuke teleported into the midst of the enemy formation and unleashed the full power of Chidori Stream, instantly shattering the puppets, none of which exceeded the level of a Genin level shinobi. System notification, killed Moon's clan puppet. Points earned, 80. System notification, killed Moon's clan puppet. Points earned, 65, TCH. Kyosuke shook his head silently but didn't complain about the small number of points. He understood the principle of many a little makes a mickle. After all, Chunin-level shinobi weren't as common as cabbages. Encountering them wasn't something that could be done with his eyes closed. He raised his head, gazing at the faint drizzle in the sky, and let out a heartfelt sigh. He knew that fire-style jutsu would lose much of their power in this kind of weather. To maintain efficiency in combat, he had to rely on the high-powered Chidori Stream each time, which was a terrifying drain on his chakra reserves. While he could use his sword to slice the enemy puppets into pieces, which would also do the job. But that method was far too excessive, and, truth be told, the puppets' taijutsu skills were surprisingly formidable. Lost in thought, Kyosuke failed to notice the puppet master hidden in the distance. It wasn't until after Kyosuke left that the puppet master emerged from his hiding spot and returned to the base with a look of anger. Based on the ninjutsu and combat techniques displayed by the enemy, the puppet master was able to deduce Kyosuke's identity. This was none other than the infamous intruder who had invaded the moon and killed their young clan leader. Surely, the clan's leader would not sit idly by while someone so dangerous stirred up chaos within their territory. It didn't take long before Otsutsuki Sujito was informed that Kyosuke was still alive. He's really not dead? Sujito stood up abruptly, excitement flashing in his eyes. The fact that his nemesis was still alive meant he had the chance to exact revenge personally. Once he captured Kyosuke, he would ensure the man experienced what it truly meant to live a fate worse than death. Someone, call Takuya over for me. He ordered. Otsutsuki Takuya, once the leader of the rebel forces, was a formidable figure whose strength rivaled or even surpassed that of Sujito under normal circumstances. It was only after agreeing to an alliance to jointly subdue the shinobi world that Takuya willingly submitted to Suguto's authority and accept his commands. Not long after, a broad-shouldered man pushed open the door. You summon me, clan leader? You're here. Sujito acknowledged with a nod and got straight to the point. A rat has infiltrated our territory, and its strength is proving troublesome. Take a squad of high-level puppets and eliminate it. Don't worry. Takuya said with confidence. I won't fail you. Without hesitation, Takuya turned and left, exuding an air of certainty, as if he had never doubted his own success. Through his study of the Fuma clan's ninjutsu scrolls, Takuya believed he had significantly enhanced his own strength. Forget some mere intruder. Takuya was convinced that even Sujito himself was no longer his match. Of course, this assessment hinged on the condition that Sujito didn't use the ancestral Tenseigan. When I obtain the pure Byakugan, it will mark the end of the main family. Takuya muttered to himself. To merge the Tenseigan, the bloodline power of both main and branch families was required. Without sufficient bloodline and ocular strength, one would remain trapped in the early stages of awakening, unable to progress. Just like Sujito. Unaware of these intricacies, Takuya naively believed that obtaining the pure Byakugan was the key to unlocking the Tenseigan's ultimate form. This misunderstanding explained why, in the original canon, it hadn't taken Otsutsuki Tonerai long to awaken his Tenseigan. It was because the Otsutsuki Moon clan had collectively contributed their Byakugan, enabling him to awaken the Tensei again in just a few days. Meanwhile, in his room, Sujito clutched his eyes and decided to inform Black Zetsu of Kyosuke's presence. He believed that enigmatic being created by Yin Style would be particularly interested in this information. It's said to have an extraordinary influence in the shinobi world. Perhaps it can help me acquire the pure Byakugan. Mushed Otsutsuki Sujito. Through the clan leader Sujito's revelations, news of Kyosuke's survival quickly spread. Black Zetsu soon caught wind of it. Based on the traces left behind, it didn't take long for him to deduce he was aiding Mido in secret. Your life truly is tenacious. Black Zetsu chuckled darkly, a sinister smile curling on its face. It didn't seem overly concerned. Now that he understood the intricacies of space-time sealing, capturing the boy would be a simple matter given the right opportunity. For now, however, his priority was to further escalate conflict in the shinobi world. His ultimate goal wasn't the destruction of the Uchiha clan. Rather, he sought to push the two brothers to awaken their Mangekyo Sharingan. Though, it had hoped the news of Kyosuke's death would provoke the desired result, but it seemed a more drastic measure was necessary. Perhaps even requiring the sacrifice of the Uchiha clan leader himself. Tajima, your time is running out. The eerie laughter of Black Zetsu echoed through the room. Elsewhere, Otsutsuki Takuya quickly located the invaders' whereabouts. Kyosuke had avoided direct confrontations with high-ranking core members until now. But he overlooked one critical detail: there were those within the clan who had awakened the Byakugan. Despite this, the clan rarely used the Byakugan in combat, as they lacked the expertise in gentle fist techniques. Instead, they primarily utilized the Dujutsu as a convenient auxiliary tool. Without Mido's assistance, Kyosuke would never have been able to carry out his repeated ambushes so effectively. TSK, how careless. Kyosuke muttered, now finding himself completely surrounded by enemy forces. He had unwittingly walked into a trap. Give up. Takuya said, stepping out alone from the encirclement. Veins bulged around his eyes as his activated Byakugan locked onto Kyosuke with an unrelenting gaze. Chapter 90, the second stage of Flying Thunder God. Kyosuke stood alone in the encirclement. Mido had been left in a nearby village for safety. Honestly, even if Mido were present, the enemies would still struggle to keep up with him if he decided to escape. Before heading anywhere, Kyosuke always made it a habit to mark Flying Thunder God coordinates in the vicinity. But instead of leaving, Kyosuke had decided to take a gamble. Sure, living on plain rice and pickled vegetables kept him alive, but it was nothing compared to the thrill of a grand feast. Otsutsuki Takuya. A figure whose shadow appeared in the memories of almost every enemy. He was one of the leaders of the branch family, an imposing and powerful leader. If their forces were evenly matched, Takuya could easily overthrow any opposition. Such a prominent figure must be worth a lot of points. Kyosuke murmured, licking his lips in anticipation as he pulled out a scroll from his waist. Points, 75,980. He was just over 25,000 points away from reaching 100,000. As long as the opponent wasn't a clan leader level powerhouse, Kyosuke was confident in his chances of winning. To be honest, Kyosuke was still far from reaching the level of a Kage. In a direct battle, he would only be able to escape using his space-time ninjutsu. Still, there was no harm in trying. If things went south, he could always retreat. One must always have dreams, he said to himself with a smirk. Activating his Sharingan, the crimson glow of his eyes flashed as he tore open the scroll in his hands with all his might. In an instant, a barrage of kunai rained down like a storm of feathers, enveloping most of the enemies in its deadly shower. How ridiculous. Takuya clasped his hands together, summoning a shimmering green barrier around his body. The kunai clattered against the shield, producing a clear ringing sound, but unable to leave even a scratch. What a strange technique. Kyosuke muttered, activating his curse seal. The black markings spread from his shoulder across his body. Curse seal stage 1, activated. Let's see how your taijutsu hold up, he said. With his Chidori blade humming in his hand, Kyosuke used a Flying Thunder God kunai as his anchor to teleport behind Takuya. But Takuya had been prepared. The moment Kyosuke appeared, a barrage of green chakra bullets greeted him. Kyosuke could destroy the barrier with a direct attack, but doing so would mean taking the full brunt of the chakra bullets. TCH, his reflexes are sharp. Kyosuke muttered, retreating. High-level puppet masters like Takuya could synchronize their thoughts with their puppets. This allowed them to coordinate seamlessly and prepare for Kyosuke's Flying Thunder God. Kyosuke quickly moved to a nearby position and realized that each specially crafted kunai was surrounded by hidden puppets, waiting in silence. As soon as he revealed himself, the puppets would immediately launch a barrage of attacks. This kind of coordination was impossible for humans, but for thoughtless puppets, it was second nature. Flying Thunder God has a counter like this? Interesting. Kyosuke murmured. Still, a sly grin appeared on his face. Too bad your intel is outdated. He flashed back to the original spot, picked up the storage scroll from the ground, and upon closer inspection, Kyosuke seemed to be holding onto a thin steel wire. Today let me show you something new, Kyosuke said, pulling the wire. The kunai on the ground suddenly rose into the air. Ninja art, manipulated shuriken technique. A high-level shuriken technique only usable by the Uchiha clan. With this technique, the shurikens could be controlled like vehicles, with their directions easily manipulated. While it wasn't powerful enough to kill outright, it was perfect for disrupting the enemy's plans. The Otsutsuki Moon's clan had gathered complete information on Kyosuke. Without this, Otsutsuki Takuya wouldn't have been able to identify the intruder so quickly. The records clearly stated that the Flying Thunder God technique required the use of relatively stationary coordinates. To deal with him, mobile tactics were the best approach. Takuya laughed coldly as he watched the flying kunai. Trying to distract me? A naive thought. Otsutsuki Takuya sneered, completely uninterested in Kyosuke's actions. From the moment he had detected Kyosuke, a large number of puppet soldiers had been closing in on his location. In just 2 minutes, the army would complete the encirclement, and with their massive numbers, they could ensure that every coordinate point was covered by a puppet. This was the vast net Otsutsuki Takuya had woven for his enemy. Once trapped, there would be no escape. This is the end for you, Uchiha. But just as he finished speaking, Kyosuke vanished, only to reappear at various spots across the battlefield at high speed. One of the puppets, which had locked onto the kunai's position, was suddenly split into pieces by a flash of lightning that appeared right in front of it. Not far away, another puppet attempted to approach Takuya, but after just a few steps, its body shattered into pieces. What's happening? Takuya's eyes widened in disbelief. In a split second, half of the puppet army under his command had been wiped out. Only then did Otsutsuki Takuya realize that the enemy had been able to teleport by manipulating the flying kunai. Had the intel been wrong, or had the enemy's ninjutsu evolved? Both were possibilities, but the key issue was that his encirclement plan had failed. With the ability to move through coordinates, the puppet army he had set up in advance had lost most of its effectiveness. Unless he could drain Kyosuke's chakra, Otsutsuki Takuya knew that no matter how many people he sent, he would never be able to trap the boy. Realizing this, Takuya recalled his remaining puppets and stepped into the open, baiting Kyosuke into an attack. Come on, let me see what other tricks you have. As he spoke, he and the puppets unleashed a barrage of green chakra bullets. His intention was clear, not allowing Kyosuke any chance to rest and to deplete his energy as much as possible. This guy. Kyosuke's heart skipped a beat as he seemed to sense the enemy's intention. Flying Thunder God Technique, Level 4, not long ago. His Flying Thunder God technique had reached level 4, allowing him to capture moving coordinates. Its practicality had increased several-fold, and it could now be formally used in enemy engagements. However, the cost was still a bit too high for him at the moment, or else he wouldn't have to enter the Cursed Seal state to fight. Points, 76,860. After a round of fighting, his points had increased by about 1,000, which was a small gain. His chakra was running low, and continuing to fight forcefully. Not only would he not be able to ensure a kill, but he would also likely face a situation where his chakra ran out. He didn't want to have to exchange for a chakra recovery potion. It cost 10,000 points, and just thinking about it made him feel reluctant. Flashing to the treetop behind him, Kyosuke ignored the attacks that followed and locked onto a coordinate 2 kilometers away, teleporting there using the Flying Thunder God technique. The harvest today had been decent, and it was better to call it a day before the enemy arrived to surround him. They might have some new tricks up their sleeves. Time to make my escape. In the blink of an eye, the scenery changed, and Kyosuke appeared 2 kilometers away. As soon as he showed up, countless chakra bullets flew toward him. Damn, these guys are relentless. Chapter 91, that person is still alive thanks to his successful advancement of the Flying Thunder God technique. Kyosuke managed to escape the encirclement unscathed. By the time he returned to the inn in the small town, his chakra reserves were nearly depleted. Ignoring the worried gaze of the girl with the bun hairstyle, he collapsed onto the bed and fell into a deep sleep. Seeing this, Mido was startled. After carefully checking his condition, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. Looking at the boy covered in blood and grime, still wearing his shoes, she puffed up her cheeks in anger but reluctantly began removing his shoes and socks. Always fighting and killing. Why does he have to push himself so hard? After wringing out a clean towel, Princess Mido imitated the maid's usual methods and began to carefully clean Kyosuke's body. After an exhausting effort, she finally managed to wipe him clean. She intended to go out to rest, but considering that Kyosuke was still unconscious, she decided to sit by his side, fighting off sleep to keep watch. Half asleep, Mito felt someone lifting her. Her subconscious tried to wake her up, but the familiar scent that drifted into her nose made her smack her lips and fall back into a deep sleep. This girl. Gently placing her on the bed and carefully tucking her in, Kyosuke walked to the window and gazed at the moonlight outside, lost in thought. By his estimation, he had been asleep for about 6 hours. During this period, there had been no sign of any investigation from the Moon Clan. Perhaps they didn't want to, or maybe they couldn't. Either way, it seemed that Otsutsuki Sujito hadn't managed to fully control the Land of Rain. That makes sense. Someone hell-bent on destroying the shinobi world isn't likely to treat the people of the Land of Rain kindly. Reflecting deeply, Kyosuke roughly pieced together Otsutsuki Takuya's plan. He had to admit, the combination of remote-controlled human puppets was indeed a viable way to completely block his flying thunder god escape routes. But unfortunately for them, no matter how meticulously they planned, they didn't anticipate that Kyosuke's flying thunder god would evolve ahead of time. The ability to track moving coordinates meant it was now much harder to predict his landing points. With his extraordinary kunai throwing skills, making the kunai curve midair was no problem at all. With the second stage flying thunder god, my actual combat power is already approaching the clan leader level. Unfortunately, age still limits my physical growth. Looking at the still sleeping little Kyosuke, he sighed deeply, knowing the road ahead would still be long. The longer, the better. After enjoying the moonlight for a while, he returned to the bed and shifted the little bin sprout clutching the blanket further inside. Then he lay down beside her, continuing to recover his strength through sleep. The night passed without incident. Ah! A terrifying scream jolted Kyosuke awake from his sleep. An enemy attack? Instantly unsealing his curse mark, he was surrounded by crackling lightning in less than a second, ready for battle. Looking around, however, he realized there was no abnormality in the room except for a furious bun-haired girl standing there, arms crossed. Glancing at his sleeping spot, Kyosuke had a vague idea of what had happened. Before the little girl could explode, he quickly took the initiative, pointing at her and scolding loudly. "Can't you stay calm in a situation like this? We're in enemy territory. What if your scream attracted an enemy we couldn't handle?" Mito initially wanted to question him but quickly realized she might have overreacted. After all, when they were out in the wild, they often rested while leaning on each other. This was just a change of location to a bed. It wasn't worth making such a fuss. Feeling slightly wronged, she pursed her lips and replied sulkily. "Okay, I get it." Ruffling her messy hair, she left the room with her head down, intending to fetch some water to wash up. Seeing this, Kyosuke let out a small breath of relief. What a gullible little girl. Scare her a bit, and she forgets everything. If she'd been given a chance to blow up, he wouldn't have had peace for a long time. Sometimes, the less you're in the right, the louder you need to be. He mumbled. Of course, he justified the strategy for himself but wouldn't tolerate anyone doing the same to him. Unless they wanted to face his blade. His philosophy of roaming the ninja world was simple, conquer with morality. And everyone knew that about him. After tidying the room and disguising himself with the transformation jutsu, Kyosuke left to have a hearty meal before continuing his hunting journey with Mito. Following the battle the day before, he noticed the Moon's clan had strengthened their human puppet patrols. Every time he entered their danger zones, enemies equipped with Byakugan would issue an early warning, summoning reinforcements to support them. Although this significantly reduced his efficiency, the Flying Thunder God technique remained powerful enough to let him escape before the enemy could encircle him. Slower progress in earning points was frustrating, but Kyosuke wasn't in a rush. Each day, he teased Mito, killed some enemies, and lived quite comfortably. In the blink of an eye, 2 months had passed since he arrived in the Land of Rain. He was on the verge of accumulating enough points to achieve a crucial power boost, Mangekyo Sharingan. The Mangekyo Sharingan. An evolution of the Uchiha clan's bloodline limit and perhaps its ultimate form. To awaken Mangekyo, one must endure profound emotional trauma, such as witnessing the death of a loved one, which would produce the special chakra needed for the evolution. The Mangekyo would enhance the original Sharingan's abilities but also grants 2 unique powers based on the user's traits. Abilities like Amaterasu, Tsukaimi, Kami, and others were diverse and each exceptionally powerful. Kyosuke couldn't help but wonder what abilities he might awaken. Of course, such tremendous power came at a cost. The more one uses the Mangekyo, the faster its user approaches blindness. Only by transplanting another Mangekyo from a close relative or fusing it with high-level Senju cells, Hashirama cells, could one avoid losing vision. As for the regular Mangekyo, Kyosuke planned to exchange points for it. After all, he wasn't about to kill someone he cared for. For the eternal Mangekyo, he had just the right relative in mind. His gullible older cousin, Keijan Uchiha. Tajima thought he'd gained an ally, but little did he know Kyosuke was eager to offer him a generous gift. one that would ensure Tajima put all his resources into grooming Kaijan Uchiha. My dear clan leader, I'll be counting on you for my future eyes. With just a step remaining to reach the 100,000 point threshold, Kyosuke decided to take a bold risk against his enemies. The bastard who had set up the ambush for him had lived long enough. It was time to turn him into a string of numbers on Kyosuke's system panel. Sigh, I'm just too kind. Even though I could have dealt with you earlier, I let you live for 2 more months. You're always too soft-hearted, too soft-hearted. Meanwhile, word of Kyosuke's survival had silently spread throughout the shinobi world. While some were overjoyed, others were deeply troubled. Among them was Kaijan Uchiha, who had recently been promoted to Deputy Corps Commander but hadn't had a good night's rest in days. Chapter 92, Kaijan Uchiha, I've gained the power. Hear the applause. A year ago, the news of Kyosuke's death shocked many people. Among the mourners, the greatest impact was undoubtedly felt by his invincible corps. This corps, with a roster nearing 200 members, had most of its members mastering the Chidori technique, with 3 Jonin level ninja boasting extraordinary strength. Such a force was coveted not only by clan leader Tajima but also by Rei Uchiha, who resided far to the south. It's easy to imagine the immense pressure placed on Izumi and Maya, the deputy commanders, during this time. Rei Uchiha, to maintain his image before his former subordinates, attempted a gradual approach, intending to dismantle the corps from within through persuasion and bribery. Tajima Uchiha, on the other hand, abandoned all pretense, going so far as to almost threaten Maya with a blade to force her to submit. Izumi Uchiha, being naturally aloof and inarticulate, often left Maya to manage most affairs whenever Kyosuke was away. Upon hearing the news of Kyosuke's death, the corps experienced several small-scale upheavals. In the face of temptations of power and wealth, not everyone possessed the resolve to refuse. Especially since, without Kyosuke, the future of the corps was uncertain. Before long, some clan members began using various excuses to leave the corps, severing ties with Kyosuke's faction entirely. After several rounds of departures, the team dwindled to 135 members, with most defectors joining the clan leader's camp. Having tasted the benefits, Tajima Uchiha decided to take it further, issuing an order to dissolve Kyosuke's corps entirely, intending to absorb it fully. However, Tajima underestimated Kyosuke's influence. Neither power nor wealth could sway them. How could a mere order compel the remaining 135 loyalists to submit? When faced with disbandment and reassignment, the entire corps resisted to the end, vowing never to comply with Tajima's demands. In the first month, Tajima visited the corps daily, offering warm greetings. He treated its members with more affection than his own 2 sons. In the second month, Tajima shifted his strategy to target their families. Families of the corps members frequently received various resources, accompanied by promises extolling the benefits of aligning with the clan leader. By the 3rd month, Tajima's patience had worn thin. He couldn't fathom why this group was so stubborn. It's just a dead man. Why such unwavering loyalty? After all, loyalty didn't fill bellies. What Tajima failed to grasp was the reason behind Kyosuke's unique influence. In any world, the concept of disciples surpassing their masters often led to hesitation in sharing power. This made Kyosuke's actions stand out even more. Everyone knew how valuable Chidori was as a ninjutsu. When Kyosuke offered to teach it freely, his subordinates couldn't believe their ears. It was akin to joining a company as a low-level employee, only for the boss to gift you shares in a publicly traded company. Such generosity inspired unwavering gratitude. For the remaining members, their sentiment was simple: the commander may be gone, but as long as we remain, the corps lives on. Neither threats nor temptations could shake the ironclad resolve of the 135 members. Seeing his schemes fail, Tajima resorted to sending Kyosuke's corps to the front lines. In the western border of the Land of Fire, clans like the Fuma, Hatake, and Inuzuka were growing restless, frequently skirmishing with the Uchiha. Tajima's intent was clear: you think you're strong? Prove it on the battlefield. As the deputy leader, Maya couldn't outright refuse a war order. Doing so would be considered treason. Reluctantly, she led the corps to the western battlefield, engaging in a series of deadly battles with various clans. Without Kyosuke's leadership, the corps lost much of its former prestige. After half a year of warfare, the corps had dwindled to just 105 members. 30 comrades had fallen on the battlefield. Though Maya earned the title Bloodstained Rose and their team was hailed as the strongest 100-man corps, those accolades couldn't bring back their lost comrades. Frustrated that his plans hadn't succeeded, Tajima set his sights on using Kaijan Uchiha to gain control of Kyosuke's corps. Yes, the very same cousin who had once plotted to harm Kyosuke. After mastering the full version of Chidori from a traitor, awakening the 3 Tomoe Sharingan fueled by hatred, And receiving 2 years of extensive training from a powerful mentor, Kai-jun had grown formidable. While he couldn't compare to the legendary Uchiha trio, his strength far surpassed that of most ninjas his age. True to the Uchiha way of keeping dirty laundry hidden, only Izumi and Maya knew the true nature of Kai-jun's relationship with Kyosuke. Thus, Kai-jun indeed had an opportunity to join the corps as Kyosuke's cousin, provided the two deputy commanders approved. However, Maya knew exactly what kind of person Kai-jun was. Upon learning of his intent to join, she outright rejected him, citing his lack of strength. To her dismay, this played right into Kai-jun's hands. Seizing on her words, he publicly asked whether defeating the two of them would earn him the right to join the corps. Kai-jun didn't forget to subtly imply their questionable backgrounds, reminding everyone that they had once been subordinates raised by Madara. In other words, we're all in the same boat. Cornered, Maya agreed to Kai-jun's challenge. In their first match, Maya used her superior Jonin-level skills and Ganjutsu to defeat Kai-jun easily. Before leaving, she told him they would fight again the next day. Returning to Tajima, Kai-jun underwent intensive training targeting his weaknesses, focusing on Ganjutsu resistance, enhancing his cell activation with lightning-style techniques, and learning exclusive fire-style jutsu. Thanks to his innate talent and the Sharingan's memory retention, Kai-jun's strength soared. By the time of their second duel 2 months later, the 15-year-old Kai-jun narrowly defeated the blood-stained Rose. But the pinnacle remained, Izumi Uchiha, the core true second-in-command and a peak Jonin. A few days later, Kai-jun challenged Izumi but was thoroughly defeated. The gap between their levels was insurmountable. Frustrated, Tajima left Kai-jun with a cryptic remark, "If you can't win within 6 months, Kaku Uchiha will marry Madara." The mere mention of Kaku nearly caused Kai-jun to erupt. Realizing Kai-jun's deep love for her, Tajima played his final card, a mental lock forged from love and hatred. Kai-jun began a grueling 6-month training regimen, pushing himself to the brink of death daily. Fueled by hatred for Kyosuke and love for Kaku, his growth defied all expectations. When Kai-jun re-emerged, drenched in bloodlust, no one recognized the man he had become. Facing Izumi again, Kai-jun declared, "One match to decide it all. If I lose, I'll disappear from your lives forever." Izumi agreed without hesitation, and the two clashed in an intense battle. The fight was ferocious. Izumi's experience countered Kai-jun's sheer determination. Both unleashed Chidori in a high-speed, long-range collision. Though Izumi maintained a chakra advantage, a surprising twist occurred. "Kai-jun, you can do it!" Kaku's voice pierced the tension. Kai-jun's veins bulged, and his Sharingan erupted with rage. With a deafening roar, he overwhelmed Izumi, standing victorious by sheer willpower. But before Kai-jun could savor his triumph, someone burst in, shouting, "Everyone! Big news! Commander Kyosuke isn't dead!" Kai-jun's triumphant shout abruptly ceased. Chapter 93, Hashirama's Marriage Proposal. Kyosuke is still alive. The astonishing news spread swiftly throughout the entire Uchiha clan. At the same time, it was like a resounding slap to Kai-jun Uchiha, brutally reminding him that no matter how hard he tried, he would never measure up to that person. Why? Why now of all times? Why do you have to come back now? PFFT. Kai-jun Uchiha spat out a mouthful of blood and collapsed to the ground, unconscious. When he finally woke up, the proud and spirited man he once was nowhere to be found. It was as if the news of Kyosuke's return had shattered Kai-jun's vitality entirely, leaving him utterly devoid of the will to move forward. At least, Maya thought so. To her, it seemed as if Kai-jun had completely lost his edge, to the point where he even ignored the orders of Tajima Uchiha. How dare a mere speck of dust challenge the sun and moon? Maya thought to herself. No matter how hard Kai-jun tried, in her eyes, he would never be worthy of comparison to him. If he insisted on defiance, the only result would be the complete destruction of his self-confidence. Yet, only Kaku Uchiha understood the truth. Her boyfriend wasn't broken but was instead using his passive behavior to conceal his true sharpness. When he reappeared before the world, it would be in a way that would leave everyone stunned. Somewhere on a desolate battlefield in the land of fire. Tiger, hare, dog, ram, dragon. Wind style, wind cutter technique. Invisible blades of wind came hurtling forward. Madara Uchiha smirked disdainfully, dodging effortlessly with a few swift movements, closing the gap between him and his opponent. Ducking to evade an incoming slash, Madara didn't even bother drawing his weapon. Instead, with a quick knee strike followed by a spinning kick, he easily subdued his opponent. Applying slight pressure with his hand, his foe let out a groan of agony, unable to bear the force. "Do you also wish to dance?" Madara's icy gaze bore into the man. Lately, He had noticed an unusual influx of Wind Country shinobi within the Fire Country's borders. This strange occurrence piqued his curiosity. Perhaps things were even more dire in the Land of Wind than in the Land of Fire. The Senju and Uchiha were overwhelmingly powerful, forcing most clans to maneuver around them in a tense political game. The Land of Wind was different. With over a dozen major noble clans of similar strength, their battles were exceedingly fierce. They couldn't even manage their own turf, yet had the gall to invade the Land of Fire? Fools who've grown tired of living. At this moment, Madara's appearance had changed significantly compared to a year ago. Whatever he had experienced, it had transformed his entire demeanor. In short, Madara was increasingly becoming the legendary ghost of Uchiha of the shinobi world. Just as he was about to probe his opponent's memory to uncover their recent activities, another wave of Wind Country shinobi appeared in the distance. Among them were even a few puppets. To Madara, the so-called puppet techniques of the Land of Wind were nothing more than children's toys. As for this battle? Ridiculous. What adult would seriously fight with a child's plaything? With his black hair fluttering slightly, the next moment, an intense sea of flames consumed all the enemies. Fire style, majestic destroyer flame. Such a dull fight. Madara's expression was somber as he reminisced about the battles with Hashirama. Those intense clashes, where his adrenaline spiked and his focus was pushed to its limit, were the kind of battles he yearned for. Everyone else was just a distraction to pass the time. With the war between the Uchiha and Senju concluded, it meant the Uchiha clan wouldn't engage in conflicts for a long time. Even the mighty Senju couldn't defeat them. If other clans joined the fray, wouldn't it just be suicide? On the other hand, Kyosuke's presumed death had dealt a significant blow to Madara. For the first time, he found himself desperately seeking power. Whether to change the clan or protect those he cherished, Madara needed power surpassing everyone else's. Rejecting his younger brother's request to accompany him, Madara shouldered his belongings and set off alone on a journey through the shinobi world. Perhaps guided by fate, but he, too, ended up at a bounty exchange run by Black Zetsu. Through battles with formidable foes, he relentlessly honed his strength. At some point, Madara began to notice something peculiar. His chakra seemed to grow at an almost visible rate. Its rapid increase even left him astonished. He was no longer the same as he had been a year ago. If he faced Hashirama again, Madara felt confident he could defeat him within 3 minutes. "I can't wait to meet you again," he muttered, a flicker of excitement breaking through his cold exterior. Only the thought of that man could soften his icy facade. A change even Izuna couldn't bring about. Picking up his long blade, Madara casually decapitated a corpse and strolled in a specific direction. Soon after, he arrived at a rusty wall inside an old toilet, suppressing his irritation as he forced it open. "Asshole," he grumbled, though it wasn't clear who he was cursing. Entering the bounty exchange, Madara handed over the blood-stained head as proof of his kill. Just as he was about to leave, the manager suddenly pulled out a sealed envelope. "You still owe main 50000. The manager said with a sly grin, resembling a scheming weasel. Hearing this, Madara slowly turned around, his voice icy cold as he replied. "Are you saying I owe you 50,000 to buy your coffin?" Feeling the oppressive killing intent enveloping him, the manager swallowed nervously and forced a smile as he waved his hand. "What I mean is, I've got some information here that I think will definitely interest you." As he spoke, he lifted the envelope in his hand. In truth, if anyone else had dared to act this way, they wouldn't have left this place alive today. But since Madara appeared, many bounty hunters had already set their sights on him. After all, Madara Uchiha's name was infamous, perpetually listed among the top-ranked bounties. Many dreamed of claiming his head for the prize. And yet, a year had passed, and despite dozens attempting to take him down, Madara still walked openly and unscathed. As for those who sought the bounty, needless to say, they all became victims of his blade. Sigh, power is everything. "I admit defeat, you're the boss." The manager repeatedly consoled himself in his heart. Better to bend than break. He told himself, recalling his mother's wisdom. Madara eyed the envelope in the manager's hand and, after a moment's thought, casually pulled out some money. Since the other party had spoken with such confidence, there must be something of value. If the information proved valuable, it would be worth the price. But if the intel turned out to be unworthy? Hey, his money wasn't that easy to take. Ripping open the envelope, Madara gave it a brief glance. Suddenly, an overwhelming aura of fury erupted, filling the room with oppressive energy. He's alive. He's really alive. The manager, cowering behind the counter, began trembling uncontrollably. Amid his terror, an odd realization surfaced. The young man before him suddenly felt alive. Not in the sense that he had been lifeless, but rather, there was now a faint human warmth radiating from him, a quality he'd lacked before. "Please, I beg you, just leave already," the manager thought, silently cursing his own greed. Thanks. To everyone's disbelief, the so-called ghost of Uchiha actually uttered a word of gratitude with a smile. Damn it. Was this a Genjutsu? Ignoring the stunned expressions of those present, Madara unleashed a fire-style technique, blowing open an exit before dashing off in the direction of his clan. After a year, it was finally time to return home. That bastard dared to roam freely outside without him? Once found, Madara resolved to give him a thorough beating. Thinking of Kyosuke's teleportation jutsu, Madara hesitated briefly before deciding to call in Izuna as well. With the two of them together, they'd surely be able to bring Kyosuke to his knees, crying for mercy. Meanwhile, at the Senju clan. Damn it. That bastard's still alive. Senju Batsuma tore the letter apart, his gaze seething with volcanic rage. During his period of coma, his younger brother had been killed by that very individual. To make matters worse, Senju Nobunaga had become the laughingstock of the Land of Fire. Ambushing and attempting to kill a 10-year-old was already a despicable act. Yet, the boy's body was never recovered, and instead, Nobunaga himself had been struck down by a lightning-style technique so devastating that his corpse had to be pieced back together painstakingly by others. Such a grudge. How could Batsuma endure it? Initially, he had blamed the entire Uchiha clan for this tragedy. Now, with his twist of fate, it turned out the boy who was ambushed had survived. Smashing his desk with a punch, Batsuma roared. That damn Uzumaki Ashina. Can't even confirm if the target's dead or not. I'll. Standing nearby, Senju Tobirama also felt a surge of anger, but he remained far calmer than his father. Father. Tobirama interrupted Batsuma's tirade, hesitating slightly before asking. Should we still continue discussing Big Brother's marriage? The truth was, Tobirama's frustration mirrored his father's. The Uzumaki clan's duplicity infuriated him. They sought the protection of the Senju but refused to commit fully to their battles. Years ago, if not for Uzumaki Ashina deliberately delaying their efforts, they might have crushed the Uchiha clan entirely. With the Uchiha forced to retreat, Tajima would have had no choice but to dedicate all his forces to defense. Who knows? The Senju might already be ruling the Land of Fire by now. To Tobirama, the Uzumaki clan was an unreliable ally, but his father clearly didn't share the sentiment. Sigh. After venting his rage, Batsuma finally calmed down. The marriage arrangements remain unchanged. The Uzumaki clan is exceptionally strong and can aid us in defending against the Land of Water's invasions. With them as allies, we'll have no worries on the battlefield. But Big Brother. Tobirama glanced at Hashirama, who had remained silent. As his younger brother, Tobirama knew well that Hashirama had no desire to marry. However, due to his unique status, Hashirama was destined to become a pawn in the Senju clan's efforts to forge alliances. After all, what better show of sincerity than having the future clan leader marry one of your daughters? The Uzumaki clan, thoroughly convinced of this goodwill, would undoubtedly become a loyal ally, dedicating themselves to the Senju's grand ambitions. Get everything ready. Batsuma said with a rare smile as he turned to his eldest son. Once you return from the Hyuga clan, I will officially send the betrothal gifts to Uzumaki Ashina. Uzumaki Mito is a good girl. She'll make an excellent wife and support you in the future. Hashirama cast a glance at his father, then sighed deeply, nodding reluctantly. Chapter 94, Kyosuke's Mangekyo Sharingan awakened the border of the Land of Rain, by the river. Lighting a bonfire and skewering fish on bamboo sticks, Mito planned to celebrate the long-awaited clear weather. With food, drink, and a place to sleep, the princess with the bun hairstyle was content. Unfortunately, that person was not by her side at this moment. What's his deal? He could have just gone back and called for reinforcements, but no. He had to wander into the enemy's base for a thrill. There was a hint of complaint in the girl's voice. It was clear that she wasn't too happy about Kyosuke taking such risks. The shinobi world was vast, and space-time ninjutsu was not invincible. Mito feared that Kyosuke would develop a habit of underestimating the world's strongest. Such an attitude could easily lead to life-threatening consequences. Sigh, he never listens to me. Such a willful child, ha ha ha. Mito sat by the river, entertaining herself. Meanwhile, the child she spoke of, Kyosuke, was heading alone into the enemy's stronghold. We, as a clan, bear the mission of cleansing the shinobi world. Do not waver. Do not fear. As long as you stand with me, no foe shall ever block our path. Otsutsuki Takuya stood on a high platform, his voice passionate and inspiring. Below him, a crowd of Otsutsuki clan members raised their arms, cheering in unison. The scene resembled a certain kind of sales rally. If only there were rhythmic applause to make it complete. Clap, clap, clap. The peculiar sound of applause quickly drew everyone's attention. Looking toward the source, they found a young man clapping enthusiastically. For some inexplicable reason, His clapping rhythm seemed to perfectly match the atmosphere. Under his influence, a group of people unconsciously began to clap in sync. What's going on? Even Otsutsuki Takuya was dumbfounded. He thought to himself, I'm giving a motivational speech here. I should be getting horse cheers, not synchronized clapping. Yet, strangely enough, it didn't feel too bad. As he followed the crowd's gaze, the figure of the young man came into focus in Takuya's vision. You're? The former rebel leader's face showed complete disbelief, as though he had seen a ghost. Kyosuke. You've got some nerve. The name alone sent waves of shock rippling through the gathered crowd. Before anyone could react, Kyosuke Kusanagi's sword flashed out of its sheath, and a dazzling bolt of electricity burst forth among the gathered enemies. Uchiha style, Chidori scatter. System notification, kill the Chunin level ninja of the Moon Clan, earn 280 points. System notification, killed a Genin level ninja of the Moon Clan, earn 75 points. System notification, killed a Genin level ninja of the Moon Clan, earn 90 points. There are not many opportunities left to rack up points. Kyosuke sighed as he used Flying Thunder God to escape the encirclement. Just as he left his previous spot, a barrage of green projectiles bombarded the area, engulfing it completely. What a rude welcome. A mocking smile appeared on Kyosuke's lips as he released his curse mark. Behind him, a pair of fleshly wings unfurled. Ignoring the swarm of puppets soaring towards him from the horizon, he flapped his wings and soared straight into the sky. Boom! The terrifying roar of thunder gradually drew everyone's attention. The land of rain, perpetually shrouded in rainy weather, was the ideal battlefield for the lightning-style Kirin. Why had he been holding back all this time? The reason was simple: if he acted too soon, the enemy would be alerted and have time to prepare. Instead of using the technique blindly, it was better to wait for the perfect moment. The thunder sounds unusual. Otsutsuki Takuya noted warily, his body tensing as he retreated swiftly toward the rear. This was their main stronghold, and it was impossible for the enemy to have set up space-time coordinates here. With that in mind, Takuya felt confident he wouldn't be the target. Smart move. Kyosuke murmured, ignoring the retreating enemy commander. He raised a hand and fired a beam of Chidori into the sky. Utilizing the Sharingan's insight, he successfully manipulated the natural lightning within the clouds to converge. Meanwhile, on the ground, the battle continued fiercely. The countless green chakra orbs blasts lighting up the sky were dazzling, a sight that would undoubtedly make for a stunning performance at a celebration. Raindrops pattered softly against Kyosuke's skin as he slowly raised his left hand. The electric charge in the air resonated with the lightning beast he was summoning, making him appear like a deity wielding the power of heavenly thunder. Majestic, solemn, and terrifying. His very presence inspired awe and dread. Vanish under the roar of thunder, he declared. Lightning style, Kirin. With a slight motion of his hand, the lightning beast descended in an instant, annihilating the enemies in the plaza. The terrifying roar of the strike alarmed every member of the Moon Clan. What happened? Otsutsuki Sujito emerged from his chamber, irritation evident on his face. Before long, a subordinate arrived to report the situation. When Sujito heard that the Takuya's unit had been ambushed, his expression darkened, as if he had just swallowed something foul. An attack on Takuya's battalion? How many enemies are there? Sujito demanded sharply. According to our scouts, only one person came. For a brief moment, Sujito felt like killing the subordinate standing in front of him. Charging into enemy territory alone. Does that person have a death wish? Suddenly, as if a thought struck him, his expression darkened, and he asked. Could it be Kyosuke? It's him. Humphrey, I knew it. Otsutsuki Sujito sneered dismissively. Without hesitation, he issued orders, surround the area within a 3-kilometer radius from where he appeared with puppets. Today, I'll ensure he cannot escape, no matter what. Touching the bandages on his face, Sujito seemed to have found the perfect target for testing his new abilities. Using the corpses of the Hyuga clan as vessels, the Tenseigan inherited from his ancestors had finally begun to show signs of awakening. Though still in its embryonic stage, upon replacing his eyes with it, he discovered they granted him incredible powers. He had been seeking an opportunity to test it, and now, that brat from the Uchiha clan had foolishly delivered himself to his doorstep. You chose death yourself, you've no one to blame. Otsutsuki Sujito remarked coldly, setting off for the battlefield. By the time the thunder ceased and the dust settled, the plaza had already turned into a ruin. Under the devastating power of the lightning style, leaving an intact corpse was a luxury. Let alone escaping with one's life in mere fractions of a second. In the distance, Otsutsuki Takuya stared in disbelief, utterly shocked. Never had he imagined the enemy would unleash such a horrifying technique. What should we do? Retreat? Someone suggested. No. After using a technique of this magnitude, his chakra reserves must be nearly depleted. Kill him. Avenge our fallen comrades. What Otsutsuki Takuya didn't know was that the true difficulty of the Kirin technique lay in creating the thunderclouds. Guiding the clouds to form the lightning beast, however, required only a minimal amount of chakra. By current estimates, Kyosuke still retained at least 90% of his chakra reserves. As the massive casualties among Takuya's forces caused numerous flying puppets to fall from the sky. Seeing this, Takuya clasped his hands together abruptly. Countless green beams, like homing missiles, surged toward the fallen puppets on the ground. Divine mechanism, 100-style maneuver. Behind him, hundreds of human puppets hovered menacingly in the air. A true display of strength befitting a rebel leader. Among the members of the Moon Clan, any truly exceptional individual was capable of crafting and controlling the spiritual energy sphere. By implanting these spheres into corpses and using a special refining technique, they could craft human puppets retaining 80% of the deceased's original strength. Outstanding members of the Moon Clan were thus inevitably a skilled puppet master. In fact, these spiritual spheres could even be implanted into living beings. However, the requirements were too demanding, placing a heavy burden on the user, which is why it was rarely seen in normal circumstances. The 100 human puppets circled above like dark clouds. Anyone would feel the pressure, but Kyosuke kept his head lowered, seemingly lost in thought, not revealing what was going through his mind. Ugh, it hurts. An extremely cold chakra surged toward his eyes like a tide. At the same time, a violent aura suddenly surged from his heart, causing Kyosuke's thoughts to spiral into chaos. Tajima Uchiha, kill. Senju Batsuma, kill. Black Zetsu, kill. Uzumaki Ashina, kill. Kill, kill, kill. At that moment, Kyosuke finally understood the madness of those who had awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan before him. He now realized why Sasuke was so fixated on his own path. Why Obito abandoned his emotions. Why Adachi wielded the blade against his own clan. Why Madara pursued the destructive Moon Eye plan. It was because the amplification of negative emotions through the Mangekyo Sharingan was simply too terrifying. Kyosuke had once believed himself to be relatively free of inner darkness. But after exchanging points to awaken the Mangekyo Sharingan, countless painful memories flooded his mind like a tape being rewound. In other words, he was starting to lose control. Don't mention the people with whom he already had gaps in his relationship. Even Madara Uchiha and Hashirama's images flashed through his mind. He could barely hold back the urge to immediately kill the two of them and turn them into filler for his point pool. Fortunately, Kyosuke had used points to complete the exchange. If he had hesitated even a little bit and chosen to open his eyes using negative emotions, his personality would have definitely changed drastically. As his ocular power deepened, his thoughts would have become more and more extreme. A lightning-style Kirin directly pushed his points to a total of 100,000. Without any hesitation, Kyosuke immediately chose to exchange for the Mangekyo Sharingan, and the scene he had just experienced appeared. Deactivating the cursed seal and slowly landing on the ground, he finally managed to suppress the boiling negative emotions inside him. Slowly raising his head, 6 pointed star patterns of varying lengths appeared in his eyes. Mangekyo Sharingan, activated. Chapter 95, Kyosuke's Mangekyo Sharingan abilities in the system panel. The points section now showed only around 600 points, which was the poorest he had been in recent years. It feels like bankruptcy. Kyosuke muttered as he pulled out the Kusanagi sword stuck in the ground. With the evolution of the Sharingan, his ocular power instantly increased by 6 or 7 times, and his perceptiveness improved significantly. The enemy's hidden Moon Village puppet technique could conceal the spiritual energy orbs inside the puppets, which Kyosuke had not been able to detect before. Now, he only needed to sweep his eyes slightly, and the energy orbs appeared in his sight, glowing like light bulbs. 100 puppets, huh? What a spectacular sight! He thought. He wondered who was stronger, Otsutsuki Takuya or the future Sasori of the Red Sand. After thinking for a moment, he believed it had to be the latter. Puppets were never meant to be used in direct combat. The uncanny techniques brought by the mechanisms, along with the deadly poison coating them, are the puppeteer's most lethal tools for taking down enemies. Choosing to face the enemy head-on would probably lead to one outcome. In the blink of an eye, Kyosuke appeared not far from the enemy, skillfully dodging the light bullets. The attacks seemed dense, yet he effortlessly avoided them. Chidori surged through the sword's blade, and the explosive sword light instantly pierced through several puppets' bodies. Uchiha style, sword leap thunderclap. The attack method is too simple. Even without a Sharingan, it's easy to dodge. What once required effort to deal with, the puppets now seemed no different from toys in the hands of a child when faced with the Mangekyo Sharingan. What? Otsutsuki Takuya's face changed dramatically. He suddenly realized that the enemy seemed to be able to pinpoint the weaknesses of each puppet accurately. By destroying the energy orbs, the puppets naturally lost their ability to move. But he couldn't understand how the enemy had suddenly become this powerful. No wonder he dared to come alone. He must have found a way to crack the hidden Moon Village puppet technique. Realizing this, Otsutsuki Takuya subtly began to retreat. Trying to escape? Kyosuke created 3 shadow clones, each starting to slaughter the puppet army from different directions. One key reason why Takuya's puppet is not as good as the Red Sands Seisaori's puppets is that the Moon Clan places too much emphasis on taijutsu. They overlooked one crucial aspect. The most valuable feature of human puppets is their ability to perfectly replicate the ninjutsu and Kekkei Genkai the individual possessed in life. Abandoning this meant that the hidden Moon Village puppets severely lacked effective methods for dealing with enemies. What's more, during chaotic battles, one also had to be cautious of the green chakra blasts accidentally harming allies. Of course, the key factor here was that Kyosuke had the ability to see through enemy movements and the agility to evade all forms of encirclement. If it had been anyone else, they would have been overwhelmed long ago by the relentless barrage of green chakra blasts. Flipping midair to dodge the figure lunging at him, he planted both feet on its body, using the recoil to launch himself swiftly toward the enemy. "You arrogant fool!" Otsutsuki Takuya was furious. It would have been one thing to fight him on the ground, but now, facing the flying hidden Moon Village puppets, this man actually dared to jump into the sky. He clearly had no idea he was bringing death upon himself. With a thought, a group of human puppets closed in rapidly. Before Kyosuke could even land, enemies appeared on all sides. Front, back, left, right, and even below him. Die. Otsutsuki Takuya's expression was filled with madness.